Now, dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to announce the welcome speech of the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development of the Slovak Republic, Mr. Samuel Vlčan.
Ministrovi pôdohospodárstva a rozvoja vidieka Slovenskej republiky.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to welcome you at Agriculture as an actor of Social Inclusion Conference and address you today at least at online form. I believe this important professional forum will bring together daily applicable ideas and outputs. I would also like to highlight the fact that this international conference is supported by a grant from OECD Cooperative Research Program, Sustainable Agriculture and Food Systems. Speaking about development of small and family farms, we refer to an effective way how to increase the will of people to stay in countryside while increasing agricultural production. By supporting the social aspect of the agriculture, we achieve in the first place the welfare of population, subsequent development of social services, rural economy, and finally developing of whole agriculture. The Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development of Slovak Republic reflects on this situation and therefore supports small and young farmers by preparing investment and startup projects that will help start and accelerate their businesses. Comparing with other countries, we lack comprehensive support for social agriculture enterprises, so I welcome professional proposals, ideas, and examples of good practice in the field of effective social agriculture support, which may also arise from today's conference. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank Slovak University of Agriculture Nitra and its partners for organizing this international professional forum, and I wish you all a very fruitful conference.
Thank you very much to Mr. Samuel Vlčan, the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development of the Slovak Republic, and we sincerely appreciate the support of the Minister in development and addressing the issues of social inclusion in agriculture. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Ladislav Miko, the Head of Representation of the European Commission in Slovak Republic, for his speech.
Thank you very much and good morning to everyone. Thank you for invitation. I just would like to check if I'm well heard by everyone. I hope it's the case. Yes, thank you for signal. Let me start by saying that obviously my perspective to this conference is a perspective of the official of the European Commission, not a scientist. Nevertheless, the policies, the agricultural policy of European Union has the aspects of social inclusion, which I would like to mention shortly today. Generally, social aspect of agriculture may be seen from different perspectives. The term social farming includes actually alternative terms or concepts like concept of social agriculture or green care or social farming, care farming, farming for health and green care. Generally, it's defined as use of commercial farms and agricultural landscapes as a base for promoting mental and physical health through normal farming activity. The concept of farming for health is a combination of agriculture and care, farm enterprise and the farmer social environment on the one side, and the care sector, including the service user and the institution. Other possible aspects include opportunities in rural societies, creation of jobs or even subsistence farming, source of basic livelihood for poorer part of the society. In globalized world, the aspects of fair trade and fair production may be a relevant element of social impacts caused by agri-food production and trade. However, my intention, as I mentioned already, is to mention linkages between social aspects and European agricultural policy. European legal framework does not include particular legislative norms or regulations in agri-sector related to the social inclusion. However, common agricultural policy, similarly as other large policies, has linkages to social sustainability in the European Union. Obviously, general social framework, socially safe EU, and respect to individual rights, including social inclusion and non-discrimination, do apply throughout the society in the European Union. and this is including the agri sector. So what we can see in the common agricultural policy in the relation to social sustainability. It's clear that agriculture not only provides livelihoods and job opportunities for farmers and their families across the European Union, but it is also sustaining the whole society as a whole through its essential services. It's contributing, and this is well known, obviously, by providing food and other essential materials for citizens, and it is acting as economic backbone, particularly, let's say, in the rural societies and communities. Common agricultural policy ensures that farmers can continue to provide these services. We have seen the crisis in developments, including the demographic change, but also basically the move, the part of society from rural areas to the more urbanized urban areas. And the point is that the common agricultural policy wants to ensure that farmers can continue to provide the services mentioned on a long-term basis by pushing for the economic sustainability of agriculture. In turn, the economic measures of the policy contain socially inclusive provisions such as support for already mentioned small farmers or, for example, redistributive payments. If I just mention few figures, in Europe, 11% of EU farmers are less than 40 years old. Women account for 28% of all farm managers, with the proportion which is ranging differently in different member states from 5 to 45%. The current spending on income support for young farmers and their initial setting up ranges from 1.5 to 6% for the vast majority of all member states. And at European Union level, the new support for young farmers is going to translate into at least 1.2 billion euro of aid annually for the coming period, which is 2023 and 2027. So if we look on that through policies and actions that especially target food security and support rural communities, the common agricultural policy ensures that agriculture can contribute to sustainability at all levels of society. Important thing which I would like particularly mention is a new political agreement from June 2021, which includes a chapter for the first time actually of the fairer common agricultural policy. It includes so-called social conditionality, which means that CAP beneficiaries will have to respect elements of European social and labor law to receive the funds. As example, transparent and predictable employment, which includes elements of social inclusion, non-discrimination, and on-farm safety and health as a conditionality for the European payments. The other element is mandatory redistribution of income support. Member states are demanded to redistribute at least 10% to smaller farms, and in their strategic plan, they must include their support. And third point of this, let's say, part of policy is that support for young farmers will have a new mandatory minimum, which is level of 3% in member states' budgets for common agricultural policy income support to young farmers, which is farmers up to 40. This could cover income support, investment, or start-up aid for young farmers. Common agricultural policy pushes for efficient food production that achieves maximum returns for farmers, consumers, and the environment. And this conditionality, social conditionality, can be applied on a voluntary basis from 2023, but will become mandatory from 2025. And the application of this will be examined by Commission, how it works, how it functions, what is the scope of this mechanism, and the report from 2027 will assess the feasibility of including provisions on the free movement of workers by 2025. Obviously, it is a new element, so advice on these obligations and rights will be provided via the farm advisory system. Sectoral interventions may for the first time be used for improving employment conditions in sectors such as fruits, vegetables, hops, olive oil, and table olives. So I will probably finish here just to mention that the theme of today's conference actually timely links to the decision which was reached in this year that the social conditionality is getting to be an element of the most important support scheme for the farmers, for the agricultural sector in the European Union, which is the Common Agricultural Policy. There are obviously also other elements in farm to fork strategy within the Green Deal, and also elements in the research and innovation agenda of European Union, which have to support this concept. So the overall move is, let's say, broader and more complex. With that, I hope that Europe can contribute to the theme which is going to be discussed in today's conference. And once more, I thank you very much for invitation and wish the conference all success.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miko, for your speech and support. We would like to excuse for some technical problems at the beginnings, and we hope that the online conference will continue in all the conditions. And now I would like to ask the member of the permanent delegation of the Slovak Republic to the OECD, Mrs. Kristina Gendová-Ružiková, the member of the Vice Chair of the OECD CRP governing body, for her speech.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, my name is Kristina Gendová-Ružiková. I am from the permanent delegation of the Slovak Republic to the OECD in Paris, and in the meantime, I'm vice chair of the OECD Cooperative Research Program for Sustainable Agricultural and Food Systems. Thank you very much for the opportunity to give you a short overview about what is doing this OECD Cooperative Research Program. The program was founded in 40 years ago. Our main mission is to provide a sound scientific knowledge base to agricultural policy making, contribute to an informed public debate on current and emerging agri-food issues, promote scientific understanding and standards between major regions of the OECD. This is a voluntary program for OECD member countries. We have a lot of synergies with other OECD bodies, mainly with the Committee for Agriculture, which is the main body for the CRP program, and its different specialized working parties, for example, dealing with agriculture and environment, or agriculture and trade, or as well with OECD so-called codes and schemes, which are standardization codes for tractors, seeds, forests, fruits and vegetables. And of course, there is a lot of synergies also with the area of fisheries. And of course, we have a lot of synergies also with other bodies in the OECD, mainly at the environmental side of the OECD family, dealing with, for example, with pesticides or water and ecosystems and other issues. So what we do in the CRP program, we try to contribute to strengthen scientific knowledge and provide relevant scientific information and advice that will inform future policy decisions related to sustainable use of natural resources in the areas such as agriculture, food, fisheries, and forestry. We try to achieve globally agreed policy objectives by facilitating international cooperation among research, scientists, and institutions. And our focus is mainly on global issues such as food security, emerging issues of climate change, and the interconnectedness of economies through trade and scientific cooperation. What we provide? We we provide two types of support, two types of programs or sponsorship. The first one is individual travel fellowship awards for individual researchers, and the second one is support for international conferences, as it is also the case of today's conference. As it concerns individual researchers, we provide them support to undertake their own research projects in collaboration with host researchers or laboratory or other research institution in different but other CRP member countries. The aim is to strengthen the international exchange of ideas and increase international mobility and cooperation, to foster long-term collaboration between the institute of the fellow and the institute of the host. These fellowships are designated for 6 to 26 weeks and are designated for postdoctoral researchers with minimum of 4 years of postdoc experience. The second support is for international events, conferences, workshops, symposia or congresses on an issue related to one of the CRP research teams, which I will touch upon a little bit later, and which are of relevance also to the OECD policy priorities in general. They have to touch current and future research or scientific developments and opportunities, and the aim is to inform policymakers, industry and academia, which could be organized, for example, in research institutions or international associations as well. As I already mentioned, the international event should be in other CRP participating countries. Here you can see our main research topics for the current period from 2021 until 2025. All of the conferences and fellowships are organized around 3 research topics. The first one is managing natural capital, the second one is strengthening resilience in the face of multiple risks in a connected world, and the third one is transformational technologies and innovation. Here you can see also the research teams from the previous period. This is just because the pandemic caused some problems also for the CRP conferences. So a lot of, in fact, all conferences were postponed for the current year, and so you can just compare the topics from the previous period. I will not go in details for these 2 or 3 slides. Here you can just find the special topics of our sponsored events and the countries which apply for the conference or international event. And this is for the current year, and here you can find also today's conference, the AGASI conference here in Nitra. Of course, we have some selection process for also the programs for fellowships and conferences as well. We have a specialized scientific advisory body which consists from 6 scientists and research administrators, and their task is to examine all applications for their scientific quality and excellence, and to recommend events and fellowships for sponsorship to the governing body, which is the decision-making body for the program. In the governing body, 1 delegated national correspondent from each CRP member country is represented. This is also the case of the Slovak Republic, which I am representing in the CRP myself. And the governing body is giving the final approval of sponsorship after once again examining and discussing the SAB's recommendations and policy, the relevance of all of the applications. What we have already done. So I will not enter again in details here, just you can find some facts about our sponsored events. We are now in last years, we are able to sponsor from 8 to 9 conferences in every average each year. Unfortunately, all of them were postponed because of the COVID-19, and this is also case of the fellowships as well. We are, from our budget, we are able to sponsor in average to give about 30,000 euros per event, per conference. And I will just give you an overview of our member countries. The total number of our member countries is now 26. All of them are as well member countries of the OECD as such. And finally, before ending my presentation, I would like to touch upon how Slovakia is successful in the CRP program. So until now, there was 3 international conferences sponsored from the CRP program. The first one was in 2015. This was also here at the Slovak University of Agriculture and Nitra, and the topic was sustainable rural areas in practice. In 2019, it was a quite big conference on risk management in agriculture, which was organized by the Research Institute of Agricultural and Food Economics. And the AGASI conference is the third one, which is financed and sponsored from the CRP program. Until now, we have only one successful fellowship application. This was a researcher from the National Forest Center in Slovak, who was at a research study in Norway, in Oslo. And I am honored to serve the CRP governing body as vice chair on behalf of Slovakia. Here you can find the date for new call of application. In general, our applications are open from the beginning of April until the 10th of September of the current year, and these applications are for the next year. And finally, here at the last slide, you can see our contact details. Also the webpage of the CRP, and also my own contact. With this, I would like to thank you all for the opportunity to present the program, and I would like to wish you a successful exchange of views on your research topics for the upcoming 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kristina Gendova-Ružíková, for your speech and your support. Let me thank you to all the distinguished guests for the opening remarks. Now, dear participants, we would like to ask for a small break just to fix the online conference for the Slovak participants. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the program of the conference will continue with the plenary session, policies, legislation, and measures for development and implementation of social farming. I would like to invite Professor Magdalena Lacko-Bartošová from Slovak University of Agriculture, the chair of the plenary session. I sincerely hope you will enjoy today and tomorrow of debate and networking, and I wish you all a very fruitful discussion.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, again. Now we are going to start with our scientific and professional program, where invited speaker this morning session mainly from all member states of European Union, but also Japan and North EU country Norway, will present their research results and experiences in social farming. I would like to give some remarks for our participants. After each presentation, you can raise questions, preferably by lifting your hand in your computers. But you can give also some questions by chat, This will be gathered by Mrs. Hrenekova. I would like to introduce Mrs. Hrenekova at this conference. And then actually I hope that everything is clear, and now we can start with our first keynote speaker. It is Mr. Thomas van Elsen from University of Kassel in Germany. Please, Thomas, the floor or the computer is yours.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation to this conference, and it's very nice to meet you, and despite it being much nicer to meet in reality, of course, everybody thinks that, I think. And I'm trying to share my screen now to start with my presentation. Do you see something?
Yes.
Could you please
reply?
Yes? Thank you.
Yes, we see your presentation.
So the topic of my presentation shall be social ecological inclusion. And I want to talk a little bit about added values of social farming under different aspects. So added values for humans, for farms, for nature, and for society. And I'm working at the University of Kassel and for the European Academy of the Cultural Landscape. We're having a community of practice of social farming in Germany, and it's also situated in Sachsen, which is in the center of Germany. Okay, what is social farming? Perhaps you all know the nice conference proceedings of the Farming for Health meetings, and the title picture of that book is telling more than 1,000 words, I would say, and it's about the impact of social farming activities on humans, for sure. And what we understand as social farming is the combination of agriculture with social and pedagogic work. Because I think the estimation of what really social farming means is a little bit different among the different countries in Europe, but I would say this is more or less the meaning how we understand social farming. So, farming for health also means, the aspect of social inclusion. That means to let's say use agriculture for purposes of the well-being of especially of vulnerable people. And this is the Farming for Health book. You perhaps all know. I think it's also available online as a I would like to start introducing a little bit about social farming in Germany. And I think there is a kind of feedback in the audio. Maybe the other participants could close their audio. Then it's that feedback is possible to reduce. Okay, we have a little. Here's a little overview of different approaches of social farming in Germany, and we have a big variety of very different initiatives and farms. Starting in the left, on the left, I hope you can see the arrow of my mouse. This is an initiative for drug-addicted people. It's forest work in Nuremberg. Then, of course, different target groups like children here in an urban gardening surrounding in Leipzig. Then elderly people on farms, which is quite a topic. Then workshops for disabled people, which also, like here, this potato peeling plant, which prepares potatoes and also other vegetables for canteens. Then initiatives integrating youngsters with criminal background. For example, here this sheep herding, where yes, younger men are integrated, which is an alternative to going to prison. Then pedagogical school farms we can see here, and also some pictures about winter work. This is a man producing apple chips, and also added values that are created for nature. I will come back to that later. But to continue with the aspect of the introduction of different types of farms, there are a lot of biodynamic farms in Germany which have been integrating social work as a topic for many, many years. Here's an example of a farm in northern Germany, integrating also school classes, but having also a kindergarten on the farm, and also integrating people with handicaps. Or, which is also a big tradition in Germany, are these so-called sheltered workshops for people with disabilities. These workshops offer industrial work, but also at least some of them also have own farms. Like this one here, it's a farm run by the Evangelion Church since 1915, so more than 100 years now. And it's a farm that has a wide range of activities, keeping different animals, having also this potato peeling plant for kitchens, and which is also important, the farm is the second biggest employer in the region. Here are some pictures of another farm in eastern Germany, also belonging to a workshop for disabled people. It's from an exhibition, and it's called WFBM, is the abbreviation for workshops for disabled people, and they call it here workshop for special people. So it's and you can see these people are quite special, and I think these pictures also tell how the work is also having an impact and added value for the people working there, because the farm has so many different possibilities to become active and to do work that satisfies the people, and to give them, to provide a feeling that they really can contribute by their work to the whole to the whole success of the farm. Also working with bees and in the forests, and this farm even has an own brewery. We visited that brewery, and the people were quite engaged in their work and producing own beer in a workshop for disabled people. But there are other target groups like homeless people, which is also a long tradition to care for people not having a home. There are also farms being specialized in that, and I think this is also something that might be special for Germany, that many of these, or most of these farms are specialized to one target group. So this is an example of a farm being specialized for homeless people. Or this initiative of a shepherd who is caring for criminal youngsters. They are going with a sheep herd from one place to another, and these young people are integrated. This is a poster of a student, a master student, who did her master thesis on that initiative. Then, of course, I think it's everywhere in Europe that many urban community garden initiatives are popping up, let's say, in the cities in Europe, and all these urban garden communities have also social work as a topic. And for example, this one in Leipzig is also integrating school classes and integrating children into their activities, like here harvesting herbs and seeds in that community garden. What is also a big topic in Germany is the connection of schools to farms. because more and more, also from a pedagogical point of view, it's becoming obvious that many children don't really can cope with a normal school in a way that the surrounding of a farm is much more suited for children as a learning environment. And this is a farm integrating or working with children with learning disabilities, but it's also becoming a topic for, let's say, very normal schools who try to work together with farms, or even found own farms on their school yard, or having also the farm on the having the school on a farm, which is the case in this example of northern Germany. Another topic, of course, are old people, projects where retired people live on the farm, also daycare for people suffering from dementia. I think we are pretty behind compared, for example, to the Netherlands, where I saw impressive examples already many years ago. But now, in the meantime, in Germany, also such initiatives are growing, and I think it's a great future and a very sensible possibility to have activities on farms. So all these examples I showed were related to the question of social inclusion. That means to use the farming environment for purposes of the well-being, especially also of vulnerable people. And I think when a long time ago, this is a picture from 2005, the Community of Practice Farming for Health was founded, and there were pretty nice conferences. They stopped in 2013, I think, but until then there were at many places in Europe quite nice and interesting meetings. And the main topic of that was social inclusion. That means to look at a farm as an environment of social care and of an added value for humans. And my own background, when I joined, let's say, this movement, was that I looked at farms from a different perspective, because I myself am landscape ecologist. And I had the let's say, the experience that farms integrating people also under the aspect of social inclusion, that these farms also have more possibilities to do something useful in the landscape, to care for the environment, to look for biodiversity, to develop the landscape under that aspect. So this is a different point of view, and many projects, that were some projects we were involved in as German partners, but I'm sure there are many more in the meantime. But the main focus of many of these projects had been the contribution to education on farms in social farming. And the last of this project, the SWEDA project, which is still running, that is trying to implement a short-term master course, also integrating social farming activities, but having also the aspect of animal welfare and the aspect of bioeconomy. This course will start in January 2021. It's a short-term master course, and if any of your students might be interested in it, you can have a look at this Twitter account about the SWEDA project. You can get information how to participate in that course. In the start, let's say the pilot of this course that is starting. This was a small advertisement for our activities within that European SWEDA project, which is an Erasmus program which is running inside the Erasmus program, and countries involved are Italy, Germany, and Latvia. Coming to another aspect of added values, because the first I wanted to show you were aspects mainly focusing on added values for humans, but we had a very nice national project in the federal state of Hesse in Germany focusing on added values of social farming for the farms. So the question was, what is really the impact on the farm organism, on different types of farms, if they start social and pedagogical activities? And we had a rather big operational group. All these covered initiatives are farms, so many farms, different farm types which have already established social farming activities, but also farms starting the social farm, were integrated in this project, and the focus was, here are some pictures of the farms being involved. We had meetings on each of the farms, so farms having goats and milk production. This is a workshop for disabled people. This is a farm focusing, this is a goat farm, but they also have orchards and different other activities. And the question on this project was, what is really the impact of the farms, and how can also obstacles that exist because of social work on the farms, how can these problems be solved and be improved, let's say. And for example, what we did, my apologies that this is in German, but what you can see on this table is which target groups are suited on social farms, and what how can special people can contribute under different aspects. So these were topics we were working at. And another project that also contributed to this question, to the question, how can added values, especially for farms, be produced, was the Pro-Farm project, also an Erasmus activity. And this project with 3 partner countries had the focus to create empowerment of disabled young people by training and support on farms. And what was quite interesting was that we developed a kind of new profession, the case manager, who can be in kind of interface on personal level, on network level, and process level. So this profession can really support the farmers also to create added values for the farm organism by having a person that has a kind of role in between the disabled people and the farmer, and catalyzing the whole processes taking place on a farm. So what we investigated in that project was that we found out demands for such case managers who can be a solution to ensure the quality, also within a new national law in Germany on inclusion. And to have a kind of guidance for people with special needs, and to offer added values for social farming, especially also to help the farmers to make it an added value for the farm to integrate people with special needs. That was the final conference in Italy in 2018. And what we are working at the moment is to start a kind of pilot project to implement that what had been developed within that Pro-Farm project. And so the third added value, the first was added values for humans, then for farms, and the third, which has also a lot to do with my own professional background, is the added values of social farming for nature. And already in the year of 2000, when we finalized a research project, which was a study on practical approaches on organic farms to develop biodiversity and the cultural landscape, there was the experience that many of these farms that we investigated also combined their activities with social inclusion of vulnerable people. And one interesting thing was within that investigation that these farms had more helping hands. I had a visit within an EU concerted action where we visited a Campbell community at the border of Scotland and England, and the farmer introduced his farm by saying we can do these activities caring for the landscape because we have more helping hands. And the farm looked quite different compared to the surrounding farms. So they had stone walls which were very well kept. They planted new hedgerows and had new biotopes on the farm. And the whole appearance of that farm was quite different because there were people integrated with special needs, and they contributed to the diversity in the landscape. Here are some more examples. Here is a biodynamic farm in Western Germany, having different groups of youngsters, but especially they care for 4 autistic adults. And they having their farm in a very marginal region where normally farming doesn't exist anymore, and so it's a very good contribution to a diverse farming system, which is only possible because they are a social farm and they have different sources of income than a normal farm has. So this is a quite good example how added values for landscape and biodiversity can be created by social farming. Another example from the Alsace region in France. Here is also this farm, Saucenon farm, which is having difficult youngsters on the farm, and they look for the landscape, they create the diversity of habitats in the landscape by managing the land, clearing forests, and so keeping the biodiversity by lots of handwork that is possible because they have integrated these youngsters on the farm. So social farming allows, for example, also the use of hedgerows for dietary fodder. Here's a teacher who helps the farm to keep these very special hedgerows, and you can see that the cow likes to feed these branches of the trees also in a fresh condition, but you can also use them as winter fodder, which is very good for the health of the animals. So it can be also a contribution to diversity on the one hand, but also to the health of the animals on the farm, to have more helping hands as people doing things that the farmer normally doesn't have the time for. And we do this also in a course with students each summer semester, every time a different farm. Here's a farm in northern Germany which also does the same thing with their disabled people on the farm, and we did it on a course, and of course it's a very nice activity for the students who understand that the branches really can be used within the farm organism to keep the cows healthy, but also to keep the hedgerows in a good shape, and to care for their future, let's say. Here's another example from another farm, and it's incredible how in a very short time you can harvest a very big amount branches, and of course it's important to look that there are no poisonous plants within, and also not stinging plants, so that that it's really a good fodder to be used for the animals in wintertime. They are dried then, and they are used as added fodder, let's say, in the wintertime. And it's a thing that especially social farms can do because they have more helping hands. And so it's a care by using, let's say, and to keep also the landscape in a way that it's not only a museum of former, let's say, activities in the landscape, but a possibility to really integrate different biotopes into the whole farming system. Also, willows for baskets is a topic that can be used within a social farm. This was also a course with students where we were working on that topic. Another thing is that a conscious way of, let's say, landscaping or landscape planning. Here we had a course on a workshop for disabled people. The people with learning disabilities were integrated in that course, so it was a really inclusive project. And we were discussing with the people how can the landscape structure be improved, and there were people integrated from the next village. The mayor of the village was there, and hunters, and so it was really nice happening. And what we did was painting the landscape in a way, because these people that were from this workshop, many of them were not able to write and also not to read, but they could express themselves by painting, and it was quite nice how the proposals of to improve the landscape, for example, here by arable by flower plants within the fields and along the margins of the fields, so they were really creative, thinking how the landscape could be improved by certain measures in which the people with disabilities were integrated. So Rischerode is the name of the farm, and very nice pictures that came out of that seminar with the people of disabilities. So to conclude, landscape care needs many helping hands, and this, of course, is an added value for nature that can be created by a social farm. And the last topic, added values for society, also for the rural development. These are some examples from Eastern Germany. We have a cooperation with the University of Cottbus, Professor Alexander Redkowski, who is professor for social work there, and what her special topic is to use social farming also for the to improve the rural development and to have an added value for society. There are lots of problems in that Eastern Germany under the East German conditions. Many people are not employed. There are many people voting for the, let's say, right parties, and so it's a big effort. Many efforts have to be made to improve the situation there. And there are lots of activities to also start new businesses and so on. Many of them are much focused on technological innovation, but what we want to integrate in this development is social innovation. That means to look at social farms in a way, how can they contribute to the development of the whole the whole surrounding of the whole rural area. And we had a conference, which was there was lots of interest in that. We developed a position paper, and meanwhile we have also support by the federal government of Brandenburg. they started an eco-action plan in which social farming is also integrated as a topic. And we are trying to start new projects using this tool. We have seminars with students of social work there, and many examples in that region how really social initiatives like here a Waldorf school starting a pedagogical farm. So many bottom-up projects, especially of social initiatives, starting new ways of farming. That means really to invent farming anew under the aspect of social work, which is quite interesting. We just had a second round table, you see, under Corona conditions, of course, with masks. And here is another initiative founded by the Workshop for Disabled People. They made a new farm, especially focusing on geese and on other on hens and so on, and chicken. And it's really a nice organic farm. Most of or almost every farm starting or having a social farm in Germany is organic, which of course is also a very good impact on the environment. Yeah, the farm shop of that social farm, and it's really not a normal farm, but a farm really founded by social or under the aspect of social work. Another example, having a farm that offers farming instead of prison. That means the people work there, they have the choice to go to prison or to work on the farm, which is also a quite nice way to develop an interesting farm organism. Here you can see it's just the second year they are doing it now, and it's really becoming a very nice and diverse farm, also combined with a community-supported agriculture. This is the farmer helping the initiative to grow and to be set up. So my intention of my presentation was to show that there are different added values of social farming, and it's for humans, for the farms themselves, but also for nature, biodiversity, and for society, and for the development of the rural area. This is another picture from East Germany, where there were big brown coal mines, and it's really a question how can this landscape be developed, and social farms also can contribute to this really big challenge. So future perspectives can be social farming as an important step towards social and ecological inclusion, meaning to large or to widen the term social inclusion to the ecological point of view, because these farms have can have lots of positive impacts also on the environment and on society. So, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you got a little bit of my intention of that presentation that I wanted to show. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for your very inspiring and motivating
So let's see how I can get out of that presentation mood.
I hope that you will be
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for a very motivating presentation, but our technicians actually need some short break because we have problems with Slovak channel. Therefore, I would like to ask you for about 10 minutes break. We have to fix all the technical problems, Thomas, and then we will continue with this discussion, because Slovak people are not hearing and are not connected. Therefore, we need some break to improve it.
Okay.
Then after 10 minutes, we are going to continue. Thank you. Maybe within 10 minutes you can see the posters that the participants of this conference sent to our organization committee, and you can look at the posters.
Do slovenského sa nedajú pustiť? Na Slovensku teraz vidno, čo on robí. Je postery sa, nedá si to prekysť. Na Slovenskom stále vidno, čo on robí, čo nastavuje.
Nie postery by malo byť vidno.
Nie.
Peter, prečo nie je vidno postery?
Postery je vidno.
Na Slovenskom nie?
V anglickom áno.
Menia sa teraz počítače.
V slovensky prakticky vypadol. Teraz on není v prevádzke.
Dobre, teraz už len ikonky sú.
Tam je zamrznutý ten posledný obraz.
Asi sa môže.
Ja viem, že je to presúvané s tou technikou organizátor, ale tak po anglickom sa vymenil minimálne za celý čas. Oni ako zahraniční gesti, oni sú teraz prekladení, pretože im všetko beží.
Ja som to nikto beží a minulé problémy.
Oni nemajú ani najmenší posun.
Tu je to prihlásené. Treba na tom zabudnúť ešte do toho. Vieš čo, linky máme tu. Dobre, to stačí. Aj je tam aj slovenský, aj anglický.
No, ten pink si mení veľa vecí.
On tam niečo môže byť zakúšnuté, o čom to nie je.
Zober si ho, práve to budem na vývoju.
Oni potrebujú ma staviť, ja som tam nainteloval.
Len počúvaj, treba tam spojazniť chat.
A to už ty môžeš robiť aj tu od seba, ne?
A zrejme tí Slováci...
No ja to si videl ako ostrý hlasení.
Najviac som zatiaľ videl...
Áno, ale tu to nesmieš, to je teraz, na to mám...
Michal.
Michal, poď.
Nie, mám blízko, a nie mám.
Skús pojazniť ten slovenský chat.
Áno, keď mal byť blízko. Potrebujem ísť len do toho výkladu na tak nám ho to ukradne. Takže ešte palce, aby sme nebugovali teraz.
Áno, na pozadí beží, ja som
to je dôležité, aby bežala.
Ale počuli, že bude prestávka.
Podarilo sa nám, že nemáme internet.
No hádam počuli, ja fakt neviem, že čo počuli, čo nepočuli.
Ja vždycky hovoriaci počuli.
Ježiš, ja už neviem. Ja som krásna, prečo ma živého, ja som stará.
A počúvaj, tuto... Michal, páč uložené na tebe, ja to musím posnať. Čo s tou nahrávkou? Vlastne nám to nahrávalo.
To musí bežiť, ale ju to... Ale počkajte, to je...
My ju vieme stiahnuť, nie?
Ale nahrávka sa nenahrávala.
Chceš, aby bolo vyhnané roku?
V slovenskom čite sa znova nahrávala.
Je to nie po slovensky, čo ma nezaujíma nahrávka. Anglicky ma zaujíma. Zajtra ma zaujíma v slovenskom kanále nahrávka. Tam nemusí bežať nahrávanie vôbec. To je anglický deň konferencia v Anglicku. Ja viem, ale prečo? Dobre. Peter musí byť potrebný.
Ja som pod svojím, nie?
Ale akože tým znie.
Viete, ako to je síce zlaté, ale to mi má aj bez toho vyzerať. Kamžite mi to.
Pri nejakých akciách.
I have a question for Professor Thomas van Elsen. I don't know if you can hear me.
Dobre, nevadí, toto je už zapnuté teraz na to prehodím.
Okay, yes, I hear you, but I would like to ask you for some time, because now there is a short technical period, because our technicians need fix a Slovak channel. That's the problem. Probably Thomas Fanels can hear you, but
okay. I just wanted to ask something.
I hear you.
Okay, then you can discuss both.
Okay.
I think that the English channel is working, but we have problems with Slovak channel. That's the problem. But most of the people are connected to English channel.
Okay.
Just
yes.
Okay, you can ask. We need not to.
Yeah, just as. Okay. Hello, I'm actually graduated already from University of Bologna, and my question was about the Zueda project that you showed in your presentation, and I'm on Twitter now, but I cannot find the I don't know, the channel or link about the short master you were talking about.
Yeah, it's possible that it's not online yet. We just had a meeting 2 weeks ago, and perhaps colleagues from Italy are not yet ready. But if you have a look at that channel, maybe in 2 weeks it will be online.
Okay, this was my question, because I'm interested in this master, or I would like to know more about it.
Yeah, you can also write me an email if you like, and I can make sure that you get the information then. So I don't know if my email is somewhere on the program, maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe.
Give me your email, then I send you.
Okay, I will. Maria.m.causarano. I would like to write, but I cannot.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see your name.
Maria Causarano. I'm from Italy anyway.
Yeah?
Ja się tu nie będę prihlásil slnečnú, dokým
Or if you, maybe you can just send me an email. I can, let me see, I cannot share my screen now. It's my name, it's Thomas, and then Van Elsen, and then at petrarca.info.
Okay. So I will send you an email.
Yes, perfect. And I'll give you a reply.
Okay. Thank you for your attention and for your presentation.
Thank you.
I think that from the English channel, if somebody has questions, then you can directly put the question to Thomas, because I'm sure that you hear it better.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, I see Matej Budec. Please, Majo, you can put some question.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to congratulate the organizers for organizing this excellent conference, and also Thomas for the excellent presentation. Thank you very much, Thomas. I have a question regarding economical viability or profitability of those projects that were mentioned. We know that usually agriculture is supposed to be an economic activity and it has to be profitable, either subsidized. How do you evaluate those projects before they are being approved or before the start? Or are those projects viable or profitable from the long-term point of view? Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for this question. I think more or less all these activities are bottom-up projects. That means there is no initially really an improvement if they are profitable. But what I think is very important is that, and I would say, of course, these projects have different sources of income. On the one hand, they are productive farms, more or less, not all, of course, but many of them. And on the other hand, they have income because of the social work, so they get paid for their social and pedagogical initiatives. What I think is very important to look at it under the aspect of let's say, the impact on society, because for societies, having people on farms, that means that in many cases it saves the society a lot of money that would cost much more if you have, for example, expensive therapies for people with special needs, and to have them in an environment like a farm where they also are able to contribute to the whole organism of the farm. It costs much less money than to have these people in let's say other parts of the society and to pay for expensive therapies. So the argument that social farming costs a lot of money, I think it's not a real argument, because it's just the opposite, that many of these activities contributing to the health of the people, seen globally, it saves the society a lot of money having these people on farms.
Thank you very much.
Is there some other question, please? Yeah, but we have a question directly from our room, but I will ask my colleague to come.
Hello. So firstly, I would like to thank you, Mr. Elsen, for a very interesting and inspiring presentation. My name is Jakova Chikova, and I would like to ask you a question related to the mentioned European Innovation Partnership operational group. So, is this group focused on social farming only, and is it international, or how it works? That's my question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this EIP projects, it's a kind of financing instrument by the European Union. You can also for sure find it also in the internet. But these are projects that are financed by Europe, but they are on a regional level. So that project, which has already been finished in the meantime, it was only in the federal state of Hesse. But I'm sure that other projects, like these EIP projects, European Innovation Partnership projects, that they also exist in other countries. And the idea of this project, or this support scheme, is to support innovative, let's say, innovative questions, or to work on innovative investigations contributing to the development of agriculture. So it's focused on agriculture, and that these projects shall contribute to the well-being of farms and the development on farms. And that was, in fact, the reason why we focused within this project on the surplus values for farms. So it had also something to do with that support scheme, or with that European partnership, European innovation partnerships. And the other thing, what is also typical for these European innovation partnerships, is that you have to found a so-called operational group. That means it's not only scientists, but also practitioners in this group contributing to the whole and also being financed. So they also, the farms, got money for their participation into the project. But you can find out for sure within your national, let's say, agencies of European Commission, you can also apply for such EIP projects.
Thank you very much. I just would like to add that the European Innovation Partnership is also a part of the Slovak Rural Development Program, and actually depends on our agriculture planning agency whether the call is open or not, and for which field the call is actually open. But it's a regular part also of our rural development program. Now, I just hope that within just a few minutes our Slovak channel will operate again, and maybe I can use this time. Personally, I would like to thank to our Czech colleagues, and especially to Associate Professor Modry, because when you see the participants of our Slovak conference, with most of them we have met at the Czech Ministry of Agriculture in Prague a couple of years ago, and therefore I personally regard it as some continuation of this Czech and Slovak cooperation, because most of you, most of you we have met personally in Prague a couple of times, and therefore I just have the courage to tell to the organizers of this conference to approach you and ask you for a contribution also at this conference. And I hope that our cooperation will continue in the future. This afternoon I will give just a short description, because I'm sure that also in Slovakia we are doing social farming, but we don't have such a good probably just statistics, and we don't talk about social farming, but there are conditions also as in the other countries. I just would like to ask whether our Slovak channel is fixed or not yet. Do we have a fixed channel? Okay. Yes. Hope it will work also with the Slovak channel. Then we can continue. Probably good afternoon now, or it is already night. I don't know what is the time difference, but the next speaker is Naoki Kondo from University of Tokyo in Japan. Therefore, we will hear some story about social farming from very, very east country. Naoki, are you here? Yes, we have seen him. Please, the computer is yours.
We can't hear you.
I don't hear. Okay, yeah. Now you can.
Okay, good morning. Yeah, I'm Naoki Kondo from Japan, and I actually moved to another university, Kyoto University. So I will share let me share my slides. Just a second. About this change, see my slide?
Yes, everything is okay. Everything okay? I hear you and I see your presentation.
Great. And so how much time I can speak in this presentation? I'm sorry to take this right now. 30 minutes?
Yeah, you have 30 minutes according to the program.
Okay, thank you very much. Alright, so I'm a physician and my major is social epidemiology. So you may know the epidemiology because of the current COVID-19 pandemic. The epidemiology is the part of the science about the disease distribution and its risk factors and so on. My major is about social risks about diseases or well-beings of people. And today I want to share some of the evidence about the link between agriculture and mental health, actually, and physical health. So, which I experienced when I went to the northeastern area in Japan, where the people hit by the great big earthquake in 2011 and the huge tsunami that hit the coastal areas. Okay, so this is the content of my talk today. So first I want to share about the concepts of social determinants of health in my field. So as a physician, my work is to protect people's, physical and mental health. And usually, many physicians recommend patients to improve their lifestyle. For example, like eat good food, stay away from fast foods, or physically active or those things. But sometimes can do that, but sometimes cannot do that because they don't have enough access to the resources they need to change their lifestyle. For example, that is the social and community networks and living and working. Oh, sorry, I need to change the slides. Living and working conditions and the work environment, education and agricultural conditions, of course. If you don't have enough access to fresh food, fresh vegetables, you can't stay healthy, right? Yeah, so the agriculture is very important social determinant. And this is a sort of a bad news. So I have worked about the relationship between agriculture or living in rural area and mental health issues, and we have intensively studied with my postdoctoral student Mariko Kanamori and some other Swedish researchers, and we have published 5 papers. In brief, I want to share some of the results. So basically, in rural area, so there are more mentally ill people. And for example, this is results from Sweden. So Sweden now accept many immigrants from other countries, and many people go to rural area because of the governmental, order and also their own, choices. But anyway, according to our analysis, the non-European people who reside in rural area are more likely to commit suicide in recent years. But I think this is because of the big structural changes in the agriculture market in the world, who are more strongly industrialized local conditions in the agriculture, market. And the same thing is shown in Japan too. So farmers are a little bit high risk for the suicide. Infant mortality, I'm sorry. So for a long time, compared to the office workers in Japan too. And we also found that, and based on our longitudinal analysis following up more than 200,000 older people in Japan, we found that the farmers who were more likely to have mental illness, and the farmers especially who live in the area where less farmers. As I said, the probability of having depressive symptoms was sometimes higher among those farmers residing in the neighborhood where the farm density was low compared to those in the neighborhood where the farm density was high. So I think this is because some farmers in the low farm density area can be very socially isolated. They don't have any support about same farming techniques or daily, some annoying things about farming or something. So they are isolated and get depressed. So we need to change these, challenges about agriculture to opportunities. But then another, but yes, when the 2011 great earthquake happened, so I went to the coastal area which was hit by the tsunami, and the city called Takata. So nearly 90% of the central area was hit by tsunami, and all people have to live in the surrounding mountaineering areas. And many of them are farmers or fishermen. And what we found was that people who doesn't have enough access to, shopping destination, like supermarket or retail store, sort of things, are likely to be homebound, stay at home all day long. So that is a great risk for older people to be, developing the diseases like diabetes or heart diseases or those things. So this was a big issue for the area, especially for the older people. And the data was featured by many TV programs or newspapers involved. So, but I have some beliefs about the potential of good thing for the farm. So that is my main story today. So how to solve this problem? So stay connected, that is a solution. And I want to show Hamarassian farms. So what is Hamarassian farms? That was founded by a physician, now he is my friend, Dr. Takahashi, who came to represent Takata City from Hokkaido, the north end island in Japan. She saw the TV news that the represent Takata City was hit by tsunami and the prefecture hospital was, flushed out by the tsunami, and he said that this was like, devastated things. I have to support them. Then she is the gastroenterologist, so he brought the gastroscope, so stomach scope, with him and went to represent Takata City and start, seeing these patients. But what he found was what the local people need is not the gastroscope, but something to do. Because many people have to live in the temporary housing, which is like very now housing for the emergency, living, and they don't have any things to do because they lost their land for agriculture. They cannot go fishing. Yeah, so what they did was just lay down on the bed and watching TV all day long. So very homebound. So the Dr. Takahashi thought that, this is quite a big health issue. So I want to make people move or do something. And he asked them what they want to do. What do you want to do? And many people, local people, say, I want to, do some farming. Then the Professor Dr. Takahashi cultivated the land just next to the temporary housing complex and lent the land to the resident of the temporary housing. So it's called Hamarassian farm. Hamarassian means in local language, let's get together or something like that. and the local people voluntarily manage the farm funds and grow many vegetables. And this is some picture from that. And Dr. Takahashi created, as far as I remember, it's 7 Hamarasen farms, just next to the temporary housing in the city. And they became very happy. And it's also featured by the newspapers, saying that farming together, smiles came back. New farming program at temporary housing sites, enriching connection among residents. Right. So the Dr. Takahashi's purpose is not just make people move and do something, but to stay connected together and enrich their connections. Because they don't know each other, because they come from different places to the same temporary housing. Yeah, so they need something, some trigger with which they can connect. So the Hamarasen Fund can be that kind of connecting opportunities. So this is theorized. In theory, we say this social capital. Social capital means the resource aspect of social relationships, and that can have emergent properties. That means when we invest to the social relationships, that can be returned with much more values. So the social capital enriching program can be effective. That is a question of the epidemiologists. And fortunately, Dr. Takahashi surveyed before he started the Hamarasen Fund. And also, after 6 months after launching the Hamarasen Fund, he also gets the data. What data? He asks them about their questions about well-being, purpose of life, and also the bone density. So this is like a health education session at the hospital for the local people, and people are interested in their bone density and come to him and have some, health maintaining lectures. Then he took the data. So with this data, we can compare their progress about the bone density, changing bone density before and after the Hamarasen Fund. So unfortunately, the number of the participants is quite low as an epidemiological research. So usually we compare, more than 100,000 people or something. It's quite small, but we found some statistically significant results. The result was this is a little bit complex table, but basically show that the participants of the Hamarasen maintained their bone density at least half years, compared to those who didn't participate in the Hamarasen Fund. And that was statistically significant difference between the two groups. And also the Hamarasen Fund participant was maintaining the bone density compared to those who are farming with his own land. They are lucky keep their farming land. In spite of the tsunami. But the people, the self-farming people, didn't maintain their bone density like the Hamarasen Fund participant. So the Hamarasen Fund was very strong. And the Hamarasen Fund participants also maintained their ikigai. That means in Japanese like purpose of life, meaning of life. And they increased the score until 6 months, despite their devastating, daily living conditions in temporary housing. So I guess the Hamarasen Fund is a quite good opportunity for social connections and also maintain their purpose of life, thinking. Well. Yeah, so this kind of, the approach for providing the opportunity for social connections rather than providing the health education message, is prevailed in Japanese as a whole, regardless of the disasters or not. So this is quite a big the central solution for Japan to maintain older people's health. That is providing the opportunity called the community salon, where volunteers, all the volunteers run the social gathering opportunities, which is open for anyone in the local area, and all the people, especially the living alone older people, gather to the places and have social interactions. According to our intervention study, the participants of community salon halved the risk for functional decline for several years. So quite a big performance is observed. Yeah, so the connections is important to individuals and also important for the organizations. So the last story is about public-private partnership to maintain social activities, to maintain people stay connected. So this is also from the representative city just after the tsunami hit. So you can see the different density color in this area. This is before the earthquake in the central area of the representative city. You can see, and the color means the proximity to the shopping destination. So the many people before the tsunami, so people can access the shopping destination easily. So quite very close, less than 400 meters. After the tsunami, so where this mesh area was hit by the tsunami, so people had to go to the mountaineering area. So now the people doesn't have any means to go to the shopping. So many people suffer from the long distance to go there. That is quite a big risk for the health. After half years, some people recovered about access to the shopping destination. What made this possible? That was by the private sector, namely the local supermarkets and also the hawker shopping, like moving shops. So they voluntarily start, provide the shopping bus to the end of the representative city, where many people previously doesn't have any access to the shopping area easily. But after that, many people have to live in this temporary housing located here. So the shopping bus, supermarket started running the shopping bus to this area. And now the people have enough access to shopping area. So that is quite a big important intervention by private sector to provide the opportunity for social activities, i.e. shopping. Or shopping is a very important purpose in their local lives to meet people at the shops. Anyway, so this is quite fit to the WHO's recommendation about how to address social determinants of health, improve daily living conditions, improving the condition to connect each other, and strengthen governance, maintain the organizational connections to provide good living conditions. In conclusion, agricultural communities are at higher risk for mental health, potentially related to the structural issues surrounding agriculture, such as the global market for agriculture, and particularly high risk among immigrants moving to rural areas, which is potentially they are socially isolated and vulnerable due to communication problems and cultural differences between Swedes and local immigrants. And the prevention of social isolation is important anytime, both in times of peace and in times of disaster. Anytime, anyway. The environment should be created so that residents can build comfortable connections and provides the infrastructure and opportunities for social interactions I mean, like Hamarasen farm and private sector's shopping bus. Those things are very important interventions to people stay connected. And farming could be very effective opportunities to foster social capital, turning the risk into opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Naoki, for your nice presentation. And now I would like to ask our participants to raise the questions, both in English and you can also in Slovak language. Chcela by som len povedať... Yes, it's okay. I hear you. Chcem len povedať aj pre slovenských účastníkov, že môžete klásť otázky aj v slovenskom jazyku, čiže zapnite si mikrofón a otázka bude preložená do angličtiny. Now, okay, I would like to ask you whether there is some support program or some governmental measures to establish such a social farm and to support them financially to be able to exist for some period. Because I'm not sure if they can be self-sufficient.
Thank you very much. Yeah, according to Hamarasen farm, that was financially also voluntary activity by the local hospital. So that's I think challenge is in the disaster settings. So because I saw many other places where people try to establish social farming interventions to the disaster victims, they actually failed. So I think for the situation of disaster, some subsidies, the technical support to maintain those things is very important. So the Hamarasen farm is kind of rare success case, unfortunately. Yeah.
Thank you.
But Japanese government in other side provide lots of incentives and financial support to the community farm to prevent older people from sedentary lifestyles. That is another thing.
I don't know, I don't hear you.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Naoki. I have seen that Mariolene lift her hands, but I'm not right now very sure.
Can I ask a question to Mr. Kondo?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kondo, for your nice presentation. I was actually very curious about the fact that you found that with farmers that have not such a good mental health. Well, here in the Netherlands, we did research at our environmental department, and we found out that in rural and green areas, the mental health of people is better than in urban areas. And also, normally farmers having a better mental health than comparing to other people with other jobs. But we have the fact that there are farmers that are committing suicide, but that's mostly because of they are having struggles with the policy changes and also with keeping up their finances. So I was wondering if you think there is it comes because of the distance, that they are so far away from each other. Is that because in the Netherlands it's totally different? We are a small country, so everybody is quite close by. Do you think that's the case why the mental ill health of the farmers in Japan are?
Yeah, thank you very much. That is very important point, and I agree with that. And we found in Hokkaido, it's northern island, that's a huge island, and where many animal husbandry farmers, are working there and using the very large land. You need to take like more than 1 hour to go to the next neighbors, So, and we found that the suicide rate is high among animal, husbandry farmers. Yeah, we are not sure about the actual reason, but the distance is one reason. And also they suffer from other risk for social isolation because animal farming is quite a hard job, right? They need to care the animals all day long. The Japanese government tried to establish some support system to make them take a rest, but it doesn't work well so far. Yeah, so they need to work long time. They don't have enough time opportunity to relax or refreshing. So that is the problem. Yeah.
Okay, so that's different. Well, of course, the work pressure in farmers in the Netherlands is also quite high, but yeah, the distance is of course totally different. Yeah, thank you for your answer.
Thank you very much. I think that now it's time for Francesco Diacolo. I have seen that Francesco is already prepared. Therefore, I would like to ask our third speaker to give ideas and research results from Italy. Beautiful, warm European country.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. Can you hear me and can you see my presentation on the screen? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for the feedback. I'm very glad to be part of this conference, really interesting and intensive on the topic of social farming. And I would like to share with you my knowledge according to the Italian experiences. I have some key messages just to start. We are discussing about social farming today because we are facing strong challenges and we are in front of the necessity to design a revolutionary solution. From this point of view, agriculture and rural areas might contribute to local prosperity and increase social sustainability. And in order to do this, we should facilitate the social innovation and transition processes in order to mobilize local resources, like resources in the case of social farming. Social farming can be seen as a kind of civic food in which the communities can be reorganized themselves in order to provide, of course, food, but also services for the local villagers. From this point of view, this morning the European Union representative was focusing on the social conditionality of the new European agricultural policies. And from this point of view, it's really interesting to match this opportunity with different models that are present in Europe regarding social farming, in the possibility to generate a conversing path according with also the welfare issues that the European countries are experiencing. My comment, my reflection are present in recent work that I published on sustainability, so I take the opportunity to invite you to read in case also this article. We are all focusing on the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And at the same time, as was said by Willie Jackson, we should work on the idea of prosperity. Kate Raworth was presenting the idea of life as the space for our life, under the constraint of the environmental challenges as well as the social one. And the question she put on the table is how to enlarge our space for the everyday life, the space of the domains. And in order to achieve this, she is recommending for new solutions. At the same time, we are experiencing already the presentation down from Japan was presenting these issues related to rural depopulation, aging, no generational changes that while also food issues and production issues, And one of the main problems that nowadays rural areas are experiencing are also related to the lack of equivalent services. So people leave from rural areas because they lack of services. At the same time, we are experiencing urban concentration and increasing demand of access to nature, educational aspect, and new possibility by living in the countryside, especially after the COVID pandemic. How to answer to this demand is not anymore a matter of public intervention because the system is in crisis. So from this point of view, the new solution should be focused on a different mix of principles that are based on the state action, but also on the action of the firms, the enterprises, the farmers, as well as the communities. This is the path that the social innovation is proposing already since the last planning phase at European level, starting from the fact that also the traditional path failed, named the state market divide, that we should design in a collective way new attitudes and institutions, breaking the traditional barrier also among sector, agriculture, social, health institutions, but also public, profit and non-profit sectors, and to generate new community alliances, and to innovate, to understand the solution from the past and to adapt to contemporary issues. This is what also in the Fakulta declaration has been pointed out when the Article 1 talked about the need to promote rural prosperity, linking the urban needs with rural resources, and also exploring the potential of multifunctional agriculture, not only in the environmental sector, but also in the social one. And this is the field of action for social farming. Of course, by thinking in this different perspective means to reorganize the role of the farm in respect with the citizens, the market, the local communities and the states, and also the attitude of these different actors in respect to the farms. From the point of view of the driving forces, we know that the whole communities were based on three pillars: the exchanges among the local members of the community, the gift and the reciprocity. Then the passage to the modern era split this way of organizing the life of the community in the state market divide that affected also the farming system. So the farmer should provide food for the market, not only for the local community. Nowadays, we are rethinking about this kind of principle, shifting to a different mix in which a market based on responsibility could include the action of the state, the gift and the reciprocity. And this is part of the message that can come also from the experiences of social farming, at least in Italy. So not only commercial farm, not only commercial mixed farm in which the public goods are supported by policies, but a kind of civic embedded farms in which part of the game is done by the market, part of the game is done by the policies, but part of the game is given also by the relationship between the farmers and the local communities in the provision of commons. So, social farming may contribute to enlarge the zone, but it is demanding in terms of new entrepreneurial attitudes that should be moved by civicness and responsibility, the capability to reorganize local social services in rural and peri-urban areas, and to organize local PPP, public-private people partnership in the perspective of the production of different values, not only economic but also social values. When we come to social farming concept, apparently it's an easy concept. Everywhere the same resources from people, plant, animals, and rural space are differently organized in order to provide services for the participants and users with different kind of outcomes. The black box is given by aspects that are related to the local welfare system, the culture, the institutions, and the attitudes that are rather different country by country, even in India. We already know that the users of the social farming services are both people living in rural areas and in urban context, with different difficulties, as was said before, people with mental disability, physical, youngsters with learning difficulties, addicted with drug business, elderly, refugees, children, so different kind of services that can be utilized for the everyday life of the community, connecting to the residents and the families, improving the local wealth society, and also produce a food that has different contents, and from this point of view can be considered as a smart food. For the people, the social farming has been in many cases a kind of revolutionary experience because the contact with nature, with the biological cycle of plants, but also the participation to the everyday real life of the farm improved a lot their capability to take part to the society in the process of social justice. These are two photos from people in a project in Pisa, people that after 10 years of treatment by the psychiatric sector started to talk again after the experience in the farm. In Italy, the evolution started mainly at the end of the 90s after the welfare crisis. In 2002, there were the first attempt to reflect on multifunctional agriculture and the possibility to provide services using the farm and agricultural processes. The first attempts were done in Tuscany. In Tuscany, there was the first regional law in 2010. Then in 2015, there was the process and passage to a national law. And the application with guidelines and policies mainly from the rural development. Nowadays, we are reflecting still in Tuscany. We will have a meeting the 19th of October by involving the social sector and the agricultural sector in the design of the new policies for the next planning. Of course, the social farming activity is a game played by different actors with different frames, conceptual frames, and different policies. So it's a field of tension, of course, because of the different actors coming from the rural development sector, from the health and social affairs, from the educational area, from justice, are thinking through this topic from different perspectives. The farmer being actually involved in public services or being part of the third sector. So the field of tension is still there. And the process at farm level, it seems to be quite easy. Of course, it matches with the attitude of the farmers that can reshape their own internal resources at farm level in agreement with local institutions and services in order to provide not only food but also services that can be recognized also by consumers, also besides the local institutions. So responsibility of the farming principle, responsibility of the consumers, reorganization of the institutional frame at local level. It can be also a process able to involve different actors together. Orchietisch is a project that we run as part of the university. It's a kind of hybrid environment between the private, a farmer, the public, the university, and non-profit firms, two social cooperatives that are working together in order to valorize the on-farm of the university resources, generating services for people coming from the public services of the area, and creating in a win-win solution what Sage made a kind of good food, a food that generates different values, both for the consumers, for the local services that can provide more effective services with less public expenditure, but also for the local users of such experiences. Each kilo of vegetables that are produced offers 7 minutes of work for less empowered people, with a more effective help for the users. When we come to the local environment, of course, there are different actors that are involved, as already said. So the process of innovation in social farming, the process that affects agriculture, the change of the perspective of different actors, the definition of new rules, the mobilization of existing resources from farming, and the organization of new way of collaborating. This is done in Toscany mainly by the way of a board of social farming that is established at local level, in which different actors can enter, sharing, generating new knowledge, and organizing new paths and new procedures. This can be facilitated according to the transition and the transition management theory by generating the arena where the different actors can convene. They can define an agenda of the activity that they would like to plan together, to start from some pilot experiment like for Japan in the previous presentation, and learn from the pilots in order to increase the local knowledge, to start promoting new organizational ways, and to share and to generate a new common sense in the perspective of a different organizational farming system, also in the perspective of the social provision of services. So this can be organized and done and supported by policies, of course by institutions as primary actors, but also from all the actors that are involved. And the problem is not only to technically mobilize the resources, but to generate the knowledge that is needed in order to organize such a process. This is like for the energy transformation. You need the knowledge on how to capture the sun, you need the organization with the energy company, and you need that all houses are built with the solar panel. The same path is for social farming, generate the collective knowledge that is needed, to generate new institutions, and to make possible that many farmers and many institutions can start coping together. This is what we try to do in the Piedmont area in 3 years by starting with the farmer association, by involving the farmer at the beginning, some innovators, but step by step generating a stronger network of actors, a kind of new community alliances able to generate and broaden the knowledge and mobilize the existing resources. To do what? To generate the net, to generate new services according to the local health authorities, to innovate the markets, to produce food, 3 million euro food, to generate new job positions also for the less empowered people, 57 in 3 years, to generate new services for local inhabitants, for about 160 people every year, to generate new firms and new attitudes, but also to save public money, about 7 million euro of public investment saved in 3 years of activity. In that time, we started to define this food as a civic food. So a food that can be used for consumers, but also for local communities. So the lesson from the Italian situation, social farming seems to be quite easy to organize at farming level. It's a kind of win-win solution, both for the economic and social sector. It needs to change the paradigm, the priority in the community, using the idea of different responsibility in the perspective of civic economy and in the design of a new outcome inside the community, and can provide many outcomes, not only for the users, but also for the local consumers, and as was already said by my colleagues, Japanese on social capital. When we move to the European situation, the black box changed a little bit, because in each country we have different welfare systems, and according to the different welfare system, the same resources are differently organized in order to provide activity. This is why we have different tendencies: social farming, social agriculture, green care farming. They are different concepts that come out with different mobilization of the same resources according to local culture and tradition. This is something that we should be able to recognize, because according with this, we have different systems. The North European one that is more giving attention when we put on this graph. On one side, the direct payment for services provided, less greater than. More based on health social specialization towards voluntary aptitude, from more informal to more formalized environment for this kind of activity, and from less to greater relevance of agricultural processes. When we look at the European situation, we see different organization of social farming, of green care or care farming. The North European is more based on public payments and specialization, less relevance of economic agricultural processes, more attention on morally disabilities and specialized services in agricultural diversification. When we move towards the workfare and the Anglo-Saxon system, as well as the French and German system, we have more the focus on charity, on project-based social farming activities, more related to social inclusion and on work inclusion based on projects. And here the agricultural processes, the real agricultural processes start to increase their relevance. When we go to the Mediterranean system, and in some cases in the Eastern European system, we have much more relevance of informal environment, agricultural relevance, less involvement of the health sector, and less presence of direct finance for farmers. So this is a completely different organization in which new community values are relevant in order to provide innovative solutions. The three systems are present at different levels in Europe. I think that we should be able to reflect on an innovative perspective in which, on European scale, we can take advantage from the three different systems to generate a kind of social chains in social farming according to different policies. So we could think that the health and educational policies can support projects that are more demanding in terms of formal and knowledge skills in the health and social sector, towards projects that are more open to the society and the value produced by the agricultural activity. So if we start reflecting from this perspective, we could start thinking to the next planning phase as a kind of evolutionary way in social farming, in which different needs are addressed with different integrative attitudes between different voices, and you use also different principles, state or quasi-market, for those activities that are more demanding in terms of care and therapeutic activity, project and public support in those projects that are in the middle between the first one and those that should be more devoted to social justice activity and the inclusion also in the job for less empowered people that can also come from the whole chain that could be organized. So from one point of view, more direct state intervention toward less engagement of public funds, and from less important or less relevant agricultural processes to more important and viable and sustainable economic activity in agriculture. So this is the suggestion that I would offer to you. And of course, from this point of view, we should think to a different farming system in which household farmers can co-design with the local community the new institutions that are needed. And of course, the new principles are based on subsidiarity among actors, the capability to co-produce public and private values, economic and social values, and a new way of competing, where competing is based on the Latin word cum petere, so to work together in the perspective of a civil economy. So a kind of new capitalistic model able to take into consideration the capability to co-create at the same time economic and social values. So just to conclude, social farming is there in a new solution. Agriculture and rural areas can take advantage and participate to the possibility to face these challenges and support the project of prosperity. Of course, to do these farms and farming systems should be reformulated accordingly and look up to the opportunities that the new policies can offer to support all people, farmers, experts, politicians in the process of change that should be able to retrofit, to bridging in a collective way, to generate community alliances and to redesign innovative solutions. So food is not just food like phone today. We are moving from phone to smartphone, and we should move from food to smartphone. The food that has different applications, like in the case of social farming. Thank you for your attention and for again for the kind invitation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Francesco, for your very impressive and mobilizing speech. That's really very impressive that you are able to mobilize so complex system regarding the social farming. Now there is some time for discussions, therefore I would like to ask for questions. The questions can come also in Slovak language. Right now I don't see any questions, therefore I would propose that we will continue. Our speaker from Wageningen University in the Netherlands, and maybe we can also put some session regarding the questions after, before the lunch break. Now I think that Marilyn you are already prepared with your presentation, then please.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Ah, okay, great.
Okay.
Ah, okay. I hope I will manage to. Yes. Okay. Well, dobre ráno, milí kolegovia in Nitra.
Thank you very much. That's nice.
It's a real pleasure to be in this conference and to meet so many new colleagues from Slovakia and other countries, but also meet again the colleagues I've met before. So thank you for your invitation. My name is Marjolein Elings and I'm a scientist, green care at Wageningen University and Research. And I will tell you in the next coming 20 minutes something about the development of the social farming sector in the Netherlands. And let me see if it's working now. Yes. I would like to tell you something about the development of the Dutch social farming sector, the main key success factors of the sector, and also some slides inside the European perspective. And at last, I would like to tell something about the effective elements of social farms for different target groups. But first, the social farming sector in the Netherlands. The social farming sector in the Netherlands is a real growing sector. If I'm looking back in 1998, we had 75 care farms, and at the moment there are more than 1,200. And on a weekly basis, there are more than 30,000 clients that visit the farms. So we see that in the beginning there was a rapid growth, but at the moment this growth comes to a halt because, well, it's the market, so it's quite satisfied now. And with this growth, we also see that in the beginning, the client groups where farmers were focused on were at first people with learning difficulties, and then nowadays this target group is a variety of target groups. You can think of youngsters with behavioral problems, children that dropped out of school, and people recovering from addiction or mental ill health problems. So, and with the variety of target groups, also the forms of care that are provided on the farms change. At first, it was mostly giving people a useful day activity, but nowadays they offer labor reintegration, respite care, but also vocational training. Well, and then Thomas, I think, already pointed out that there's in our European countries, we're discussing what the definition of social farming or care farming is. And because the examples of social farming in Europe is so diverse, but also in the Netherlands, we still have these discussions. Is a care farm a real commercial farm which also offers care to vulnerable people? Or is a care farm also a place in which the farm environment can only be used as a therapeutic setting? So that's quite a difficult question, but one thing I can tell is that the Dutch care farm doesn't exist because there's so many variety in the size, in the client group, the type of agricultural production and the type of care that is provided. So for instance, if you look at the size, I think the average care farm in the Netherlands have 15 or 20 clients per week. But there are care farms that only have 2 per day, or sometimes even 50 clients per day. And also with the type of client groups, the way of care that is, the severity of care can differ. Some client groups need quite a lot of supervision, sometimes one-on-one. Sometimes people can work in bigger groups. And also the nature and setup of care farms also differ greatly. There are care farms where agricultural production plays an important role, and clients and the farmer work together to achieve the production. But there are also farms in which the agricultural environment is there for the benefit of clients. There's a wide range of examples. And if we look at the Dutch situation, and the motives of farmers to start a care farm in the Netherlands, we can say that it was often the farmer's wife that had a background in healthcare. That is the reason why they started a care farm, actually. Well, because they were already working in healthcare and thought, why not do the same thing on my own farm? And what we see the last couple of years, that there are also a lot of former healthcare workers that, well, they are a bit fed up with the system of bureaucracy in regular healthcare institutions, and they think, I would like to have my own care farm and buy a farm and start a care farm. And also the new perspectives of farmers play a role, because farmers in the Netherlands need to make choices. What will be my business model? And one of the ways of having new perspectives can be starting a care farm. But what we see is not often the financial aspect is not the motive for farmers, but often the social motive, because often care farmers have experience with having people with a disability, for instance, in their family, or already opened their farm for vulnerable people from the village. Well, if we look at the development of the sector, we see actually a kind of a couple of milestones in this development. And if we're looking back in the 1990s, there were actually care farms that were there were isolated initiatives, and they didn't have that much legitimacy, and they also did not have any financing. What we saw is that in the late 90s, the ministries of agriculture and also the Ministry of Healthcare changed their policy or their view on the future. And what they would like to, they point out that both agriculture as healthcare need to be more, as we call it, socialized. So that agriculture should be more in contact with the consumer and more in contact with society, and that also healthcare, in which was often organized in healthcare institutions, for instance in forest parts of the Netherlands, should be more in society. So people with a disability should also be part of society. So, and that new view of both ministries caused that in 1999 there was the start of the National Support Center for care farmers, and it was financed by both ministries because the way, the care farms really fit with the view and policies of both ministries. And the National Support Center, they set up a network. They did lobby activities. They also made a website in which they made a database where you could see all the care farms in the Netherlands, and clients could also check where they could go to. And they also set up a quality system. Well, and then in 2003 there were some changes in healthcare financial systems, and the clients in the Netherlands got the opportunity to have their own personal budget. And that was really actually a great shift for the increase of the care farms in the Netherlands, because then clients could choose their own care, and they also could have a contract directly with the farmer. Then an extra change in healthcare was there with the liberalization of the long-term healthcare, in which also care farmers could have their own accreditation of healthcare and be having their own contract with, for instance, municipalities or the governments. So it made it much easier for care farmers to start their own care farm and have contracts with clients. Well, we see that in 2007 the funding of the ministries for the National Support Center stopped, but in 2010 the care farmers in the Netherlands united themselves again in the National Federation of Care Farmers, and we also see that that also on regional level care farmers united themselves in corporations. So actually every region in the Netherlands have their own corporation of care farmers, and in this way they can act like one bureau in which they can lobby with municipalities, can do the administrative work, can do the progress and monitor their quality. So the sector got more professional. And next to that, what we see in the Netherlands is that care farmers also looked at new services, because as an entrepreneur you need to actually spread your risk. So, for instance, in the Netherlands, in the Dutch healthcare system, if you only are focused on one target group, it can mean that if there's any change, you can lose budget. So often care farmers search for new services or new target groups to have on their farms. Well, and one of the main key success factors is that in 2005 the federation started the quality mark, and you can see the sign on the right. And if farmers have this quality mark, they have it on their barn or somewhere on the house. So you can see a care farm has the quality mark. And with this mark, care farms meets the standards of quality law of healthcare institutions, the Quality Complaints and Dispute Act, the Occupational Health and Safety Act, General Data Protection Regulation, and Client Participation Act. And care farmers need to fill in they need to fill in the whole system, and it's being checked by the Federation of Care Farmers every 2 years. And what we next to that see is that at first the care farming sector in the Netherlands was focused on quantity, so they were trying to increase the number of care farms. But since the last 15 years, they are also looking how the sector can be more professional and look at the quality of the care on the farm. And with that, together with the Wageningen University, they also build up a client satisfaction system with surveys for every target groups, in which clients fill in a survey every year to tell how satisfied they are with the care on the farm. And this instrument is developed for different target groups. So, for instance, for people with learning difficulties, they do smileys, and for people with dementia, often the caretakers fill in the survey. And what we measure is we monitor the needs and objectives of clients, the satisfaction with the activities, the involvement and responsibility, the satisfaction with guidance of farmer, the satisfaction with social context of the farm, the social context outside the farm, the achievements of clients' identified objectives, and also the empowerment of the clients. And what we see is that often the care farmers use this instrument also every year to evaluate how clients are doing on the farm. So it's been used quite often, and it's very nice to have such a database. And then, in addition to the presentation of Francesco, I would also would like to have a small excursion to the European perspective, because Netherlands is not the only country, of course, with care farms. There are lots of other countries that had a huge development in the social farming sector. And what we see is that in Europe there are actually kind of three discourses or ways the social farming sector developed. And the first one is the multifunctional agriculture discourse. And in this discourse, we see that social farming takes place on a private or family farm under supervision of the farmer, and that the farmer integrates commercial farming and green care activities on the same farm. And social farming is an economic activity, but often social motives are the most important driver for starting care on the farm. And care farmers are paid for the care activities by different actors like healthcare or participants' budgets. And participants work in an ordinary farm context, and farmers are generally not health professionals. And countries that have this kind of discourse are, for instance, Austria, Flanders, and the Netherlands. And then we have the social inclusion discourse. And in this discourse, we see that the farm is used as a physical environment that offers possibilities for manual and unskilled labor, and that the private farmer can be the provider of both the social agriculture activity as the physical environment. And the activities can be organized by rehabilitation centers, prisons, or social services, and the participants may receive compensation for their work. And in some countries also the farmers are paid for delivering these social services. I think one of the examples is Italy, in which they have this social inclusion discourse. And at last we have the discourse of public health, in which the green environment and labor is considered of therapeutic value for people with special needs. And the farmer is seen as the person who can provide the green environment. And the farm and labor, but the farmer is not the key actor in the therapeutic process. And professionals working with the participants are healthcare professionals or work supervisors. And the social agriculture can be financed by the Ministry of Healthcare, healthcare insurance companies, or directly via clients. And the professionals working with the clients are formally employed and receive wages. And if we look at an EU project called Green for Sea, we looked at different countries in which part of this discourse they are. And there's none of the countries that in this project were in this discourse of public health, but I think, for instance, Norway is a good example of a public health discourse. Well, and at last I would like to tell you something about the research we've done at Wageningen University concerning the effects of working on care farms for different client groups. And in those studies we focused on 3 client groups, and there were youngsters with behavioral problems, in which there was a program where youngsters stayed for half a year on the farm and go to school. Another study is a study with people with mental ill health or recovering from addiction, in which we followed the clients for 1.5 years and measured both quantitative and qualitative what they did on the farm and how their quality of life progressed. And last, there was a study with elderly with dementia, in which we also followed people on the farm and also people on regular daycare facilities. And I would like to tell something about the results in general, and because what we see from all different studies is that the care farm offers 4 main core qualities. And that is the attitude and engagement of farmer and co-workers, the social community, the green environment, and useful and diverse activities. And those 4 main qualities causes that a care farm can be an informal non-care context for clients. And that is totally different than from other regular facilities. And I would like to highlight some of the results per quality. At first, the engagement of the farmer, because what came out of the research that studied a program for youngsters with behavioral problems, we see that when a child comes to school, or comes from school, he or she can share their story. So if they are entering the farm, the farmer and his family and his wife are there, so they can share the story with the farmer. And the supervisors mentioned that in normal, regular youth care facilities, that's often not the case, because there's a lot of changes in supervision and staff members, and what you see is that all staff members often have their own norms and rules, and that can be somehow difficult for some children, while some of the children also look for clarity and stability. And next to that, we see that the farmer can also set an example for youngsters, because often they have a problem with their identity, and in general the farmer is proud of his business and what he achieved, and the farm life is his identity. And for instance, we also see that especially boys respect the farmer more than they do with youth care workers. And well, what we see is that on the farm, the participants work together with the farmer, and he or she is also part of the farmer's family. And this also creates an atmosphere of equality. Farmers indicate also that they have the freedom to do things they would like to do. So sometimes they can take risks if people would like to develop themselves and search for the limits of people, or can see what people need. For instance, challenge them and stimulate their responsibility. And of course, I think others can see the same in other countries, that the emphasis on farms is mostly on what people can do instead of their disabilities. Then the social community. If we look at the quality social community, we see that working on a farm ensures participants have social contacts. And especially for the target group people with mental health, this is very important. Because of their illness, often they lost friends and families, and they sometimes stayed in healthcare institutions and didn't have a lot of contact. And also for people with recovering from addiction, it's often very good to learn new social contacts, because they can get rid of their old scene and old contacts. And what other social workers in addiction institutions tell is that also the people with that are recovering from addiction, they demonstrate more social behavior than they do, for instance, in the regular facilities. And well, that's a very nice result. And what they see is that because of the rhythm and the fact that you need to go to the farm, and you are expected, and also you work with animals and plants that need your help, people feel responsible, and also their perseverance increased during their work on the farm. And that's a real good result, so people can go back in a kind of work structure and work rhythm. Well, and if we look at useful and diverse activities, a lot of people in the studies tell us that they feel they do something useful, and that the farmer and his family are waiting for them to come and to work on the farm. And that also the farm environment is distracting them from their feelings and thoughts and their problems. And that working on a farm is often a totally different environment than they are used to, because a lot of people come from the city, and that environment is totally different from the farming environment. And that with this new environment, they also learn new competences and skills, and they can, well, it gives them thoughts for what can I do in the future. Well, at last, the green environment. Of course, there is a lot of research done on the impact of green environment on different people. And in general, those studies show that a green environment gives you a better mood. It reduces feelings of fear and anger, improves people's attention span and concentration, and a green environment leads to lower heart rate and lower blood pressure. But what we also see from a study with elderly with dementia, in which my colleague Simone de Bruin compared the farm situation next to the regular day facilities, we see that all the people with dementia on the farm are more physically active than on the regular care facilities. And that is because farm activities, you need more physical exercise to do them, and they are always there, so you also need to do them. And it stimulates people in a natural way to be active. And what was also a very interesting outcome of that study is that during the stay on the farm, they significantly eat more carbohydrates and drink more fluids than on the regular daycare facilities. And that is especially for elderly with dementia, with malnutrition is quite a big problem. It's a very positive effect. Well, and if we look at the target group people with mental ill health, people tell us that the green environment relieves them from stress and negative thoughts, and that this environment is also non-judging. For instance, animals don't judge you on how you are. And last, as I said before, the green environment is often for people a totally different environment than they are used to. And in studies, people tell us that on the farm they make more use of their senses than they do, for instance, in the city where there are already so many stimuli, and they get overstimulated. And at the farm, there's more rest, and their head is also getting more peace than in the city. So I can conclude that the farm environment can offer a variety of client groups in non-informal care contexts in which they can safely work on their personal development and work on their self-confidence in a safe and green environment with useful activities. And with that, I would like to end my presentation, and I hope to come back to the group again. Let me see, yes. And if you like to, this presentation is based on a report, and if you like to read more, you can scan the QR code or send me an email, and you're much welcome to do so, and I can send you the reports.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. I am sure that there can be a lot of questions regarding the particular things. You have done a very broad issue, and I think that everybody knows that the care farming really in Netherlands is something what can be for us a good practice example. I have just one question. You have mentioned regional centers for care farmers that were established. I would like to ask who established these regional centers that were established by farmers, but they get some help from some government or I don't know. Because this is, from my point of view, this will help also in Slovakia to establish some regional centers for this type of farming.
Yeah. Well, actually what we see is that farmers unite themselves. So in every region there are farmers that just say, well, we would like to have a regional cooperation, and we just make one. And actually often there's no funding, but they think it would be nice to cooperate themselves because things can be done more efficient, like lobbying, like doing administrative work. And often they have a bureau in which there is a person or a manager or coordinator that does all those kind of work. And it is for the care farmers that join the corporation, it's more efficient. And you can also have a kind of the accreditation in healthcare together. So it's easier if you do it with a central bureau than you do it for each care farmer alone. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So actually it's the kind of entrepreneurial kind of way of thinking why it exists. Yeah.
The other question comes from Jan from the České Budějovice.
Hello, thank you. I don't know if you can hear me because sometimes I have problems with the mic.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. I would like to ask Marilyn about rules actually, because you said that there was a national support center later there was the Federation of the Care Farmers. Actually, if someone would like to step into the Federation of the Care Farmers, what are the rules you have to fulfill, or are there some rules?
Yeah, there are, of course, and so if they would like to enter the federation, they need to fill in the handbook of care farming, and also have the quality mark. So they need to fill in quite a lot of administrative stuff to enter the federation, and also they need to pay a fee. But that, yeah, so there are some rules to enter the federation. And it's also true that not all care farmers in the Netherlands are a member of the federation. So of the 1,250 care farms in the Netherlands, I think 850 care farms are a member of the federation, because some care farms are also quite big, and they are having, they're kind of their own care farm care institution, and sometimes they are also pioneers. They don't, well, they're just, they have so much experience that they don't think they need the federation. I think they are right. You can also do it yourself, but yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I would like to extend a little bit my question. They need to have the mark, and the mark is the same for all the regions, I think. It's the national mark, and the rules of the mark were set by the federation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And the quality mark is monitored by independent checkers, people that check care farmers fit the rules. So they are not employed at the federation, but they are independent people that from healthcare that are asked to check the quality regulations. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Is there some other question? Yeah, I see the question open. Okay. Yeah, you can ask the question. Mrs. Morway, you can ask the question.
Sorry, thank you. Hello everyone, and thank you for such a fascinating morning already. Marilyn, I have a question for you. You mentioned, I think, that you have observed the process historically has been farm transitioning to social farming and health farming. Have you seen health institutions transition to agriculture?
Actually there are quite a lot of examples of that. Actually, last Monday I was at some of those care institutions that was a regular care institution, but now have different green places in which children work because they dropped out of school. So that health care institution thought what we are doing now is not we need additional green environment to give the clients more beneficial effects of what as an extra. So they set up a whole program with a orchard, with a allotment garden, where children now work every day and have a program to go back to school. Yeah. So, and there are lots of other examples as well. Yeah, for instance, a youth care institution in the Netherlands that had regular facilities, but now works together with farmers, and in which the children also go to farms. Yeah.
Thank you very much. If there are no questions, many thanks to Marilyn for really very inspiring contribution to our morning program, and now it's your turn. We will hear the contribution from Rhys Evans from Norway. We are going to the north of Europe.
Yes, hello. Let me just do the obligatory check. You can see my presentation and can hear me, yes?
Yes, we can hear you and see the presentation.
Okay, great. Well, it's, again, I want to compliment everybody who's come before me and on their presentations. It's great to see and hear what everyone has been doing. I see we are up to time, but I did notice in the last program that we were to break at 12:20, and I had sort of planned to go to 12:30 because that was the original schedule. But these presentations will be available to people, will they not?
Yeah, you have enough time, yes indeed, because you are the last one. Okay, my microphone was switched off.
Okay.
Yeah, you have time, just
all right.
Your presentation is the last one.
All right, that's great then, thank you. I want to talk about something a little bit different than what's been talked about before. Not that, indeed, I haven't done some similar research on, the positive impacts on health and well-being and socialization, and in particular on rural development, because that is my original orientation. But I'm aiming this really at those the people in those countries who are really developing the social care sector now. And what I'm going to do is actually focus on the Norwegian experience in order to, in some ways, almost bring both a cautionary tale and also to point to some successful strategies. Because I know, having been part of a number of these meetings, that people will look at the Netherlands, people will look at Norway and think, we want to do that. Well, I'm going to actually focus on the policy environment in which social care happens, and I hope prompt you to think a little bit about that. There's going to be three basic subjects: an introduction to social farming, which I'll go through quite quickly, and again a fairly quick explanation of the Norwegian experience, and then I'm going to focus at the third place about this idea of cyclicalization when developing a social farming sector. So, I don't need to spend much time on this. We've talked about this already. Green care, what is in the name. And of course, in Norway, it's grønn omsorg, yes? Which in a sense means a green environment, or green care, in fact. And I know, having been in projects across Europe, that the different names are used in different places, right? Now, formal definitions, we want them as wide as they can be. So, social farming is the delivery of therapy, education, and well-being services to those who need them within a farm environment. And this includes a really vast and diverse array of services, from mental health services through social trauma, services for those who suffer social trauma, through education, both special pedagogics and ordinary education at multiple levels, and of course, assisted employment on the farm. And this is because properly structured therapeutic activities which take place in a farm environment, they take advantage of all these things we've just been learning about: recent understandings of the therapeutic value of green spaces, of outdoor activities, of real work, human-animal relations, etc. Because they offer clients an extra opportunity for therapeutic growth and personal development when they are taken out of the traditional environments in which they live and brought into these green environments. And there's a lot of evidence base, even though, of course, we all struggle with evidence-based medicine. But nevertheless, there is a lot of evidence now. That, for example, in horticultural therapy and human-animal activities in therapy, or, for example, EAAT, with horses, forest bathing and similar impacts of green environments on stress and other negative characteristics, and the needs for active mobility and learning as the key elements of well-being. There is a strong evidence base, not that we don't need more, and not, in particularly, that we don't need more that the medicos will listen to. But that's, of course, another topic. So what I want to say, this comes from a project that I was involved with people in Finland, Sweden, and Norway. And we called it a subset of a new field of development called New Nature-Based Services. And that term is really new. If you search it, it's very hard to find anything beyond this project. Nature-based solutions, that's about floodplain management. But nature-based services is this idea that outdoor environments are an asset for rural development. So it includes things like outdoor recreation, adventure tourism, as well as social farming. And the idea of this new Nordic nature-based services was to identify new opportunities for small farms to participate in a new and growing segment of the rural economy. And that new segment is the incredible growth of the emphasis and, if you will, payment for well-being and active lifestyles. Not just for people who are within the health system, but for the whole general population. And for social farming provides such services to those who have these specifically defined needs. Although, of course, in education it's a little different. It's a prime example, as we've seen, of farm multifunctionality. As we learned from the Italian example this morning. It also is really, from an agricultural and rural development perspective, a key example of the 80-20 rule, where 20% of the farms produce 80% of the national agricultural economy, and vice versa, which raises the question, what do we do with these 80% of farms that can't participate in industrial agriculture? And so social farming is a strategy that helps improve incomes for small farms, keep families on the farms, and by the way, and no small thing, provide opportunity for female entrepreneurship and to provide effective care services for a growing group of people who need them. Just a quick diversion here on definitions. Excuse me. You can see the three definitions that we're using up here in the north. Service buyers, those are those who pay for the services. Service providers, those who deliver, and that includes the farmer as well as the professional, and service users or clients. And each has distinctive needs, distinctive practices, and it's very useful to have that threefold definition predefined. Okay, that's my introduction. Now, Grönomsorg i Norge, okay, is very evenly split between education, health and social care, and what we might call other uses. And education involves preschools, forced classrooms. There's quite a movement, for example, to just have young children outdoor every day in school, even in Norway, where it gets cold. And there's a growing body of evidence about the benefits they take from that. Within health and social care, of course, we're talking about physiotherapy, support for mental health, support for those in the social care system who suffered exclusion, trauma, abuse, and those kind of things. And then the other uses, well, assisted work environments is the key one, I suppose, in Norway, but even city farms, animal penning farms, and that kind of thing. But you find pretty much fairly even split across the sector in Norway. I want to just again take a little diversion to point to the So Far Edu website. You can see the address here. This is a project I was involved with, and a number of the people here today were involved with, to create a sample bachelor degree in social farming. And I highly recommend you take a look at the website, and particularly look at the menu item of results, because there is a lot of free downloadable material from all the way from suggested courses to pedagogic guides. Now, a quick history. In the mid-2000s, social farming was seen as a farm diversification strategy to help farmers generate new forms of income, especially small farms. And the money was made available to invest in social farming through Innovation Norge. That is to start, for startup. Not for running, but for startup. And there was a lot of uptake, and with as many as 1,100 farms providing social care and education, etc. This comes from the agricultural census of 2011. From 2010 to 2020, there was a consolidation of the sector, were the agency responsible for farm safety and food safety and animal safety, which is called Matusina or Matmerk, included Grundomsorg within its remit, and particularly created a set of quality standards and a quality security system. But also things like ensuring the safety and appropriateness of converted farm buildings, and this still applies today. In 2014, the government also recognized Inputuna, and Inputuna kind of means in the farmyard, as the trademark for social farming in Norway. So in some ways, it's a bit like Marlene was talking about in Holland, but Inputuna was only regionally organized. It was organized into a set of regional member associations. And you have to be a member to call yourself an Inputuna farm, but you don't have to be a member to deliver social care, social farming. And over the course of the decade, the numbers declined to approximately half. So we went from whatever it was, 1,100 to nearly, we're just about at 500 right now, according to Matosina, that is the ones that are Inputuna and recognized. Now this is partly because of the retirement of the early pioneer cohort, and some of the difficulties of getting started in this sector because of increased bureaucracy, which we in Norway are ever so familiar. Another reason, by the way, the numbers might have declined is because of change to reporting standards. But the sector itself is structured in a very complex way. And I'm not talking about other green services like outdoor experiences, etc. But in green care, there are multiple actors, starting with the clients, who are recipients of service position and have very little input, unlike, say, in Holland, where you have a personal care budget. Then the buyers, who in Norway are generally the municipalities, and they create an individual contract with the providers, with the Inputuna or other care farms. But it also includes NAV, the Norwegian agency responsible for employment and participation, particularly in employment of people who otherwise wouldn't be employed. And then you have all the policy implementers, the national parliament, which passes regulations, and the counties who are responsible for implementing the national laws. So even though the municipalities are the ones who have the contract with the care farms, all these other actors are putting their 2 bits worth in as well. So you can see from this rather complex diagram here, you have a care farming provider on one side and the client, and you have county governments, municipal governments, Matosina, you have the Inputuna regional associations. Sometimes you actually have brokers who work between these. And indeed, Innovation Norge, who often gives the initial grants to invest in the physical infrastructure of creating a care farm. And you can see in some cases, these arrows go more than one direction. So it's a complex sector, and I must admit, it took me a while to find all of the parts of it. The result is that providers face a complicated challenge in getting established, because first they must prove their competence. They have to acquire academic or professional qualifications, like I'm a physiotherapist or a mental health therapist. They have to adapt the farm and its built environment. They have to get Matosina approval for those adaptations. They have to plan and create a program of service delivery. They have to acquire capital to invest in the processes. Then they can go looking for contracts with the local service buyers. So you have to put a lot of money up front, and it takes a few years to establish yourself as a social farm before you get a contract to actually deliver services, in many cases at least. However, when we think about it, in Norway, across governments, all possible responsibilities are devolved to the lowest level of the commune. And so too, the responsibility for the provision of social farming devolves to the commune. They're the ones who pay for it. And thus, social farming exists outside of the formal health system, either the system for acute care or specialist long-term care. Now, municipalities do have elder homes and they have homes for, mental health homes. And they exist outside of that system as well, the formal medical health system. Now, when we're talking about Norwegian social farm enterprises, it's very much as Marjolein was saying in the Netherlands. It usually consists of a farmer and a specialist who's professionally certified. Often a couple, often the specialist is retired for professional life and provides their expertise within the farm environment. Clients are usually bused to the farm for the day, but will come regularly. The contract between the social farm and the communa is for 1 year only, and it contains the quality provisions of the service delivery. So not only the service provided, but even the quality regulations of that provision will vary from communa to communa. And in fact, you'll see, one of the challenges for providers is the communa actually all act very independently. So, I just want to run you through a quick PACO analysis. This is like a SWOT analysis, but it ends in a positive opportunities. So starting with problems. The barriers to entry include this complicated procedure. Like I said, it takes time and money and significant investment. And the diverse nature of the registration process means that there are no single actors covering the whole scene. There's no Ministry of Agriculture responsible, Ministry of Health responsible, etc. And only recently has there been a new member organization that represents the concern of the whole sector being formed. And this is Infotunet Norge, which is a member organization of the member organization. So finally, we're starting to see a voice, a single voice, representing the sector at a national level. The advantages, though, of this complex system is that innovation in the sector responds to local challenges with new initiatives, like the creation of this Infotunet Norge as a national voice, the recent rise of what we call brokers who will stand between service buyers and service providers, managing all the official paperwork in return for a percentage fee, of course. And they also operate to connect providers with buyers, the demand from buyers. And this is important. In many of my interviews, the farmers and the therapists have professional expertise, but they don't have professional expertise in bureaucracy. Brokers do. And this offers, for many of them, a really important service. And another example is this growth in new activities for services for elders with dementia. This is a new sector that's only been growing for the last 2 or 3 years, and this year has received quite a lot of policy emphasis. Challenges, well, we've got a lot of people retiring. We're losing a lot of our pioneers in these, as we become more formal and more, if you will, bureaucratic, the barriers to entry make it a bit harder to join in. And as it says, as I was saying in the last slide, the complex set of regulations and actors require providers to be experts in field outside of either giving social care or farming. And also these 1 year contracts put off a lot of potential entries. And for those who are doing it, it creates a lot of stress for the existing service providers because you're borrowing money, you're working in your farm on a 5-year plan, and you only have a 1 year contract, and there is no guarantee that it'll be renewed. Mostly they are, but it's a lot of people report stress about this. And the thing is that regional diversity, while it's good at a local level, limits the ability of this community of actors to act collectively, especially at a national level. And for the clients, the regional diversity results in access as being a bit of a postcode lottery. Like, the provision is very uneven geographically across Norway, which is a very large country. Just to give you an example, equine-assisted therapy, some of the best access is in the Lofoten Islands, way in the north of the country, because there happens to be 3 particularly passionate and high-quality providers and a local communa who's interested in supporting it. So other places with an awful lot more people don't have access to even that much. And the last challenge that I'm going to talk about kind of significantly here is overlapping jurisdictions, particularly around social care and health, which creates competition between the sectors and can interfere with provision both to the client and at the level of service providers. So we've looked at advantages, challenges, but there are opportunities. Demand is increasing, and further growth will certainly counter this postcode lottery status. And there are increasing opportunities for education to learn how, as teaching is developed in supplementary healthcare fields and also in farm-based pedagogy. And the opportunities also is, we see that there is innovation within the sector as these new fields of care are emerging. So that's a little PACO analysis. There are advantages, there are challenges, but there are opportunities as well. Now, according to everything we've kind of seen, and indeed a lot of what lies at the background of the discussions even this morning, social farming should then be seen as the responsibility of the government bodies responsible for agriculture and rural development. But of course it's about health and well-being as well, and about education. So is it the responsibility of the authorities for agriculture, responsibility of the health authorities, education authorities? I mean, ideally, all 3 sectors would work together in order to provide benefits for the farmers, for the clients, and the wider society, the kind of benefits we've been learning about this morning. This means having agriculture, health, and education, like ministries, working together to build an interdisciplinary alliance favoring farm-based provision of health, well-being, and education services. And I've got to ask the question, how likely is this? And the answer is, in many places, not very. Government departments are not known for successful cooperation over the long term. Even when they start such collaborations, changes in governments or changes in budgeting can interfere with such a program. A classic case in Norway involves what was called the Samhandlingsreform in 2012, which was meant to change the focus of the health system, which is a discrete, separate actor organized regionally, but at a national level. To change the focus from the health system to well-being from a focus on illness and to devolve more responsibility to the most local level possible. I mean, when I first saw it, I thought, this is great. This is really going to make a good change for social farming and equine-assisted therapy. However, the reform did not address budgets. And the regional health authorities, the acute care authorities in particular, refused to share their existing budgets with other actors, which effectively short-circuited the reform, and which is generally accepted as having fallen short of its potential. Now, there has been some re-emphasis on increasing well-being within the formal healthcare center, but it has to compete with, of course, the increasingly expensive treatments for illness, for budgets. And is very much the junior sibling in this within the formal healthcare system. Now, this is what we call siloization, and there's two definitions here. Interestingly, if you look in formal dictionaries, you don't find anything. So these are both kind of Wikipedia type definitions, but it comes from computer science. And it says the act or process of placing identical data into a multitude of separate electronic places or electronic containers, resulting in inefficiency of data altering and challenges with consistency. Just pretty suggestive about when we talk about government departments, or the splitting of personnel, data, etc., into isolated units with poor communication. And siloization is a real risk in social farming because of this need to join up agriculture and health. in the realm of policy, siloization can be characterized by departments who naturally use their own vocabularies, their own specializations, and their own budgets, and protect them. I mean, it was Weber who said that the job of a bureaucracy is to protect itself and grow. And siloization creates fiction, particularly with issues which cross the boundaries between silos. And of course, it creates extra expense through duplication. And I think, there's a real, certainly here in Norway, we've seen those risks of siloization, and it's a policy issue which we're trying to address. There's two ways in which we can address this that I want to bring to your attention right now, because they both offer opportunities to do so. The first is to think of a term called boundary objects, which comes from the policy literature. And you can see the quote here. A boundary object is any object that is part of multiple social worlds and facilitates communication between them. A boundary object has a different meaning in each world that it inhabits. The same thing, but a different meaning. And as a result, a boundary object must be simultaneously concrete and abstract, simultaneously fluid and well-defined. In other words, boundary objects are things which mean something different to actors from different viewpoints, even though they're the same thing, around which these actors can gather and act, seeing their own benefits. Each different come from these acts. And I think Mariane's description of the system in the Netherlands is a good example of how that perhaps might happen. So we maybe need to think about this. If you're establishing a social farming sector where there hasn't really been a formal one before, this is something to think about. And in the Norwegian case, localization is really what's allowed the sector to escape those higher level arguments in siloization. In Fortuna has become the responsibility of the municipalities, and this is the lowest local level of government within which they can exist. So the municipalities fund the services which their clients or users rely upon from their own budgets. And this goes some way towards assuring that the locally provided social farming services address social needs, which of course supports innovation. And, as I said, allows them to create a trajectory which isn't being stifled by the acute care trusts or even, the farmers' union in that way. So, localization as a policy response to building a social care, social farming sector is probably something that should be considered very seriously. The benefits it brings is diversity and local suitability and direct communications between the buyer and provider, but it also offers a few challenges like a lack of buy-in from higher level departments like ministries. It offers a challenge of the need to establish, the quality keepers, like in Fortuna and Matosina. That's why they exist. And it is subject to inconsistency across the municipalities. One of the things that's missing in the Norwegian system is some kind of organization of municipal officers who contract social farming. As a result, the individual municipal contracts vary from municipality to municipality, and there are issues with that, which I have learned from interviewing people across a number of municipalities. So, if we're building a social farming sector from scratch, here are some things to consider. The institutional positioning is the first. Is it agriculture? Is it health? Is it education? Yes, but how do we get that out of its silos? How do we bridge those silos? And we think about this practically. Who pays and what are they paid for? Who regulates quality, safety, land use? I mean, for example, the Norwegian Farmers Union, Bondelaget, is an actor in the social farming sector, and they're the ones who insist that social farming can only happen on a real farm. Now, we think back to that 80-20 rule. Some of those those small farms haven't actually been productive farms for some time. They don't qualify to be an in-between farm. Is that something we should think about and care about? We need to consider what would be the relationship with the existing healthcare system and how to maintain flexibility, the ability to respond to new challenges and opportunities whilst guaranteeing quality and good experiences for farmers. So, in conclusion, social farming does provide benefits for all three groups, farmers, clients, purchasers. And it offers new and important ways to improve the lives of clients, and surely that is the most important thing, right? And to reduce the social care system reliance on warehousing in large institutions. It's a service which is growing across Europe, a service which can provide high-quality social, pedagogic, and healthcare at an economically advantageous rate, as we saw this morning. And yeah, in conclusion, I really look forward to seeing my colleagues in Slovakia join the rest of us on this really interesting journey. Thank you very much.
Sorry, my microphone was off. Thank you very much, Riz. Now we have some time for questions before lunch. Riz, you can put the questions. And I heard you, Riz, there are a lot of questions related to social farming and also the questions who will pay for what and so on is usually on the table every day also in the Slovak Republic.
AGASI, yes.
Yeah, but I would like to encourage the other people, they will ask the questions. We don't see it. Any hands? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Mario, you can put the question.
Yeah. Reece, thank you for your nice presentation. And I was actually wondering what, maybe I missed it in your presentation, but what what are the bottlenecks that in Patunet or the care farm in Norway is not part of, if a client is in the healthcare system, why can't he easily choose to go to a care farm in Norway? So why isn't the Patunet or the care farm not part of the healthcare system?
It's a very good question, absolutely. Partly it is, again, I think this focus on illness rather than well-being, the acute care organizations like Health West, Health Civic here, they're focusing on curing disease. Or focusing on, if you will, sometimes curing mental illness. And of course, one of the things that we know about social farming is if a person who, for example, has schizophrenia comes and has an experience on a social farm, it's probably not going to cure their schizophrenia. What it's going to do is it's going to incredibly improve their quality of life and their contribution to society. And in the Norwegian system, many of the medicos don't think that's a relevant thing. There's a culture of that. And so as I described in the samhandlingsreform, it's all good, but you can't have any of our budget.
Okay.
There's the sticking point, I think, and so Inputuna has developed, if you will, around the outside of those systems.
Okay. And so I was also wondering, because I think the Scandinavian countries are always up with the trend, you are always quite in front. And you talked about it, children are coming to farms, and that there are even examples of schools where they go outside all day. But then I thought, especially during this pandemic times when we were all sitting inside, I was actually jealous of my daughter and son that they were in the forest and playing, and So I was actually wondering, why is there any chance is there any link with just adults as a target, just adults in Norway, just like you're having so many space and so many forests and so many. So is there any link with just we as adults having like recovering from stress on farms or what?
It's a very good question, isn't it? My main research is human-horse relations, and I will go to a conference and I will bring a colleague from Finland who is a high school principal and uses horses with poorly socialized teenage boys. And then I'll bring another colleague who's a physiotherapist and she'll talk about therapy. And then I'll have a colleague talk about mental health. And then I'll get up and I'll say, it's been a long time since I was a juvenile delinquent. And I haven't broken anything in a long time. And people think I'm crazy, but no doctor's ever written it down on a piece of paper. But every time I interact with horses, I get the same benefits as those young boys, as those recovering patients. And this is why this new nature-based services model was starting to be developed. I mean, I'm only looking at the social care side of it, but there's a whole other side exactly about stress relief. The way I put it is, in 2013, for the first time in human history, more people in Europe lived in cities than didn't. That's a huge transformation. And what's city life missing? And you're describing it exactly. And I think this is we're going to see, not just for people who have special needs. We all have needs. And there's an incredible opportunity for that. I think. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I think also a nice new business model for care farmers as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you, Reese.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have one more question. Lucia Lukanova, you can raise the question directly. Okay.
You hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Reese, thanks for an excellent presentation. We are a social business in Slovakia, 1 year old. And I actually had experience guiding a horse in Norway on a farm with kids and adults with handicaps. So thanks for all this context behind it. And we are just orienting ourselves in this field and also wonder how we can develop the business. And what we do is integrate people, but also we focus on renewing the microbiome of the soil. And from this point, I wonder, what is your experience about the cooperation between social farmers, between borders? So, is there a space for cooperation? Let's say, do you cooperate with Swedish social farmers, or is it really just experience exchange, but it's so specific that there is no in-house?
Yeah. It's a really good question. Really good question, actually, because again, it's sort of obvious, isn't it, that there should be. And yet, if you look at the European, you have a cluster around Netherlands, you have the northern, we have the Visegrad countries, but is there a European network where all these networks work together? Isn't that our next challenge? To do that, Right now, yes, of course, you could make an arrangement with a Norwegian, in Inpetudengård, but that would be up to you. As a sector, we really need to take that next step to join together, and also in such a way, think about lobbying and affecting the European Commission to pass, standards which can apply all over. So it's bizarre, isn't it? Because it's like think global and act local right now. I mean, we're thinking on the big screen, but if you're starting up your own social enterprise, as it were, probably my advice would be to work with as local as suppliers as you possibly can, and then maybe add something bigger later. Okay. So yeah, thanks. because that's a challenge. I mean, a challenge I wanted to put out to everybody here, you know. What's the next step in aligning ourselves with each other, Paul?
Yeah, thank you very much. Now the last question during our morning session, I would like to ask Mrs. Moravčíková to put the question.
Okay, hello, thank you very much for the presentation, and I would like to ask you, is it possible to estimate the rate of unsuccessful contracts, and can you give us some example for such decisions?
Good question. Yeah. Well, you remember I did say there were, in 2010, there were 1,100 grown home sort of farms registered in the agricultural census, and in 2021, Matilsina said that they added, I think, 17 new ones to make a total of 490. But unsuccessful, successful, I mean, that's an interesting question. I can't tell you how many people, for example, borrowed a bunch of money, fixed up their farm, had it rejected by Matilsina as not matching the conditions, and withdrew. I mean, somebody wants to give me the money, I'll do the research, yes? But it's a very good question. But I would say that in the shrinking of the sector, like I said, there's a lot of people who just got old and wanted to retire. They've been doing it for 20 years already. After being a teacher, you know, until they were 40, and then started a social care farm and did it for 20 years and said, okay, I want to go, you know, I want to go have holidays in Tenerife again, you know. Is that failure, or is that actually just the completion of a 20-year successful career? So I don't know if anybody else has something they might want to say to that.
Well, may I contribute? Maybe I was actually wondering, was the sector, because it was a very popular sector in 2010. Mm-hmm. So it's maybe a critical question, but wasn't the sector in Norway, were they not capable of marketing themselves or show their evidence in a way that they were more inclusive in the regular system, or?
Well, the question there is, who is they? Remember, these regional organizations, until last year, there was no national voice. And that's one of the downsides of that small-scale regional organization. There's many upsides to it. But, you know, there was no voice on social care farming at a national level. So, yeah, and again, like I said, you know, as the quality standards get better, and, you know, as we get more and more of them, you know, as the cases, you know, where people were being used work too hard, so, okay, we have rules about that now, and then we have the certification rules and the safety rules. And there is a bit of a feeling that it's hard to get into now, much harder than it used to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that we actually fulfill our morning program, and let me to thank to all our invited speakers for their very inspiring and very impressive presentations. What we have actually learned in Slovakia, and I'm sure that also in other Central European countries, that we are not alone in building social farming sector. Our colleagues give us a lot of experiences, a lot of motivation in building this sector and to stay in this sector and try to its development also in the Slovak conditions. I hope that it was very beneficial, this morning session, because within this morning session we have heard mainly our colleagues from all the European Union countries. In the afternoon, the session will be devoted to Visegrad 4 countries. Therefore, the discussion will be slightly different, but we will start with OECD presentation. Now, there is a lunch break. It is pity that we are not able to invite you for a lunch. You have to lunch at home, but we will meet at 1:20 after the lunch break. I would like also to ask my colleague, she would like to have some remarks.
I'm sorry, I'm also from Slovakia. My question was, because you are really different speakers from different conditions, I have read a lot of, let's say, papers about measuring the social value. What's your opinion about measuring and assessment of social value? Because there is many views about that. Some views are about not to measure it because it is impossible. Some, let's say, support schemes are asking for measurement and some indicators to measure. What's your opinion in Norway? And maybe I would like to ask Mr. Kondo, Professor Kondo, for the response as well. Or if somebody has some specific let's say, advice about that, I would like to ask you for that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll just put a quick word in and then pass it over. Within the worst world, like equine-assisted therapy, every paper administers like these scales on self-confidence or communication, and then administers them again after a period of therapy. And always, every paper says, well, there wasn't a statistically significant change. Then they say, but anecdotally, the people participating report increased self-confidence and increased communication skills. I think we should just throw those things out and actually just report, to a certain extent, either make our own tools that are relevant instead of using others, and emphasize on that, the fact that, yeah, people are, as we heard this morning, in Thomas's stuff, people reporting that we don't need to play that game in order to communicate successfully.
Does anybody of you have specific how you do that in Japan? Do you, Professor Kondo, do you have a, let's say, specific advice about it?
Yeah, so it's the measurement depends on the purpose of that. So if you want to include the social farming as a means for the medical care or therapy to cure some diseases, of course, that should be, for example, in Japanese case, that should be reimbursement, actions in the medical insurance services. For that sake, so we need some evidence that social farming intervention is effective in preventing the diseases or curing some diseases. For example, like psychological problems, depression, major things. But for daily activities, so as Dr. Evans says, so it's more anecdotal evidence or some information which fits patients or participants of social farming can be satisfied. That is enough. Yeah. So again, it depends on the purposes. And recently in Japan, so the so-called social prescribing is quite many people are interested in that. It comes from the United Kingdom, and that means prescribing medicines, not the drugs, but social activities or social connections. So the farming is quite a good opportunity for social prescribing, and I'm quite sure about its effectiveness. Yeah. So the current challenge is how to implement those opportunities for social connections into formal care services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, to add on that, I think for the Dutch situation, it was one of the key factors or success factors for the development of the sector is that we work together as a university together with the Federation on research, because they could use the data from the research to show what the care farmers did are doing on their farm. So in that way, we are often, we work together with the Federation. So also with, you need that for a kind of marketing strategy to just, in the beginning, show what you are doing on the farm. And if you're then established, then it's fine, and in that way, I think it's also very interesting to just use surveys or tools that are also used in other facilities to, for instance, measure client satisfaction, to use the same kind of surveys, but then maybe slightly change them for the farm situation. Because if you have the same kind of surveys, you can show, like, in the other in the other care facilities, they give a 7, but on the farm they give 8.2. So clients are more satisfied with the care on the farm than with the care on the regular. So it's, I think, good to have some, to not only have anecdotal material but also have real data as well. I think, but yeah. That's my experience, yeah.
Thank you very much. I will maybe ask Professor Francesco. Yes?
If I can build on what has been said, indicators should be coherent with the objectives. So it depends on the objectives that you have with your practices and to choose the right indicators. Of course, it's also the reverse is true. That sometimes indicators contribute to co-define the objectives. And this is also risky, because if you want to define a new environment in order to grow social capital, as in the Japanese situation, to carry on only on health indicators can destroy the capability to produce local social capital. As for the Norwegian case, the answer was describing the process of bureaucratization and professionalization of the environment that at the end started to destroy the pioneering sector and the capability of people to enter into this sector, into this arena. So really indicators matter and matter with the objective that you are taking into consideration. And the problem is the coherence between indicators and objectives. This is for my experience. For sure, the complexity in some cases, especially according to the current situation in which we are not founding the farms. The farms are reshaping their attitudes and the relationship in the market and the relationship with the community and the consumers. Is that you cannot rely only on health and social indicators, although they are relevant from the political point of view and in the communication. So the complexity sometimes by you to choose one specific area of intervention or a specific area of investigation, but the risk is to lose the overall context of this kind of practices, in which, as was already depicted also from other countries, many actors are involved and many actors are generating tension inside the sector, bringing to more to the health, more to the social, more to the agriculture, instead of to redefine a new environment in which all these three parties can co-design new goals, new objectives, as well as new indicators.
Can I just respond to that? I mean, my colleagues here in Norway would hang me if they thought I said they were destroying the sector. But I know exactly what you mean. But it's a very resilient sector, and it has responded to those challenges, and it is growing again and is coming. And I would not want to give a different impression of it than that. But your point, I totally agree with. Absolutely.
Again, many thanks for your contribution. And I have got information from our organization committee that we will meet at 1:40 in the afternoon. And all of you are invited to join also our afternoon session. Then see you in the afternoon. Again, many thanks for your contribution.